All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the Carson City Planning Commission to order. This is Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. Call the roll, please.
Chair Borders,
Present?
Vice Chair Cron, Commissioner Brooks, Commissioner DeChristopher,
Here.
Commissioner Peterson, Commissioner Pizell,
Here.
Commissioner Preston. Are you there? I can't see you. Okay, a quorum's present.
Thank you. Commissioner DeChristopher, will you lead us in the pledge, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I didn't say this at the start, but this is also, we're going to have the growth management meeting. We're going to recess this meeting and then go into growth management. So we're going to cover both departments today. The public is invited at this time to comment on any topic that is relative to any matter over which the public body has supervision, control, justification, or advisory power, including any such matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. No action will be taken on the matter raised during this period for public comment. Is there anyone for public comment at this time? Okay. Please identify yourself so we know who you are.
Thank you, Chair. Denny French, Carson City. I'd like to bring up the fact that we're getting into hotter weather. And because of that, I really want to remind people to be safe out there as far as trailhead use and trails. But I also want to say that I would
Denny,
really,
move it a little closer.
I would really appreciate if we all take a minute to think about this open space considerations that we have as far as growth. And growth in this case would be partly the 5G and the fact that they have to have towers closer than they had with other levels of communication towers. And as such, we are creating a pattern of resistance towards any migrating birds and insects. And I think that's a fallback deal, but I wanted to bring it up now because I had a little bit more time to direct on that. But as far as the fire hazard, please keep your eyes and ears open for any red flags. And I know it's a bit of a comment thing for a public comment for specifics that your purview is, but I think all of our purviews as people that are watching out for the safety of this environment and the community should be very alert to this fire hazard that we're going to be facing with extra temperatures. Watch out for heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Keep yourselves hydrated and be safe. Thank you.
Any other general comment? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item 6A. I'm sorry, 5A. For possible action and improvement of the April 30th, 2025 minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Could I have a motion to accept them?
Yes. I move to approve the minutes of April 30th, 2025.
Is there a second?
I'll take it.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. All right, now, LU 2025-0150, discussion and possible action regarding an application for a special use permit to allow for the construction of a 500 square foot attached accessory dwelling unit, ADU, on property zone single-family 6,000, located at 2530 Sycamore Glen Drive, APN 010-41401. Heather.
Thank you, Heather Ferris, for the record. The subject property is zoned SF6 and located at the southwest corner of the intersection of Fieldcrest Drive and Sycamore Glen Drive. The applicant is proposing to construct a 500 square foot attached accessory dwelling unit. An ADU is a conditional use in the SF6 zoning and must be consistent with Division 1.4 of the Carson City Development Standards. The staff report contains an analysis of how the ADU will meet the standards, including requirements for the ADU to be attached, the size of the ADU, the required parking, and the requirement for the ADU to be consistent and compatible with the design and materials of the main residence. As shown in the elevations here, the small attached unit will blend with the existing residence. It will include 1 bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, and living room area. Additionally, while listed as a condition of approval, staff has also confirmed, and the applicant is prepared to state on the record today, that the use and the site plan do not conflict with any private restrictions on the property, such as CC&Rs. There are 6 findings of fact the Planning Commission must make in the affirmative in order to approve a special use permit. Staff has made all findings and is recommending approval, subject to the conditions of approval that are included in the staff report. We did receive 1 public comment, which is included in your packet. The applicants are here, and I'm available for questions. But first, Stephen Pote would like to address the commission.
Okay. Stephen?
Stephen Pote for the record. So the new development standards specifically state that Public Works needs to determine that there's sufficient water and sewer capacity for ADUs. And since our memo didn't specifically state that, I just wanted to put it on the record that there is sufficient capacity to serve this ADU.
Okay. Are there any other questions for staff? Heather, looking at this, this is truly not, there is no access between the two other than the front door. Is that correct?
That is correct.
It doesn't look like there is.
It does not look like there is. It looks like it's
Okay.
just through the front door, yeah.
All right. Are there any further questions for staff? Is the applicant here? Yes. Would you come forward, please?
I'm Janine Green, one of the owners of the property.
You have to press the button until it turns green.
I'm Janine Green, I'm one of the owners of the property.
All right. And I am Matt. You turned yours off.
Oh.
There you go.
And I am Matt Green.
Okay. Are you familiar with the conditions of approval that we have in front of us?
Yes, we are.
Do you accept those?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Okay. And am I correct that there is no access between the two?
No, we're building it for our daughter to live in.
Okay, so if it's raining, you're gonna get wet if you go visit, right?
Well, yeah, we'll have to walk out our front door, or we can go out the back of the house and come through a back gate,
Okay.
to try to come
That's
along the
fine. I
side,
just-
but
Are there any other
it
questions?
is for her to have privacy.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner DeChristopher?
Oh, mine's not a question as much as it is a comment. I really appreciated the level of detail that you went to with landscaping, because we infrequently talk about that. Even when we have a new development, that's like one of the top priorities to talk about. And then when someone comes in and does something such as this, we haven't had a lot of discussion. So I truly appreciated that you're making that look like a continuation of your yard. I think that will help blend into the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Commissioner
I-
Preston?
Sorry.
Excuse.
Hi, I have a question for you. I'm looking at the parking space that looks like it's, just adjacent to the front door. My question is that it appears, is that most of the houses that are in the neighborhood have their garages, as yours does, where it comes in. And this is going to have an outside parking. Do any of the other properties have outside parking, like for RVs or anything like that? or-
Yes.
Yes, there is many properties that either have trailers that are pulled up alongside of the house and parked.
But this is in front of the house, right?
In
We
front
actually
or
have some
along the side
along
of
the
the house.
side.
Ours is in a unique location that we are on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, we're facing the street on both sides. The proposed ADU parking is an existing RV pad. And I've been told that I could expand the driveway, but that's within that 20-foot setback, but there's nothing to be built there. It's just a wider driveway.
I think that what just kind of threw me off is just that it looked like everybody has garages that people go into, like that.
No.
And this is gonna be a sideways one.
There's a,
Well,
yes,
There are,
there's,
there are a lot of, in fact,
Off-street-
you all have a pad on the other side of your house, right?
Yes.
With an
Yes.
RV on it.
yes.
There are lots of RVs parked in pads in this neighborhood.
We actually have an RV right across the street from us that's parked on the person's front yard. And
Okay.
that's been there
Yeah,
for 2
and,
years.
Okay.
In
Yeah,
their
that's-
driveway.
That's the only question I really had.
Yeah, there's RVs all around us.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's one it's parked and draining into the sewer clean out on
Thank you.
Fieldcrest.
Yeah, I just was wondering on that one.
Anything else? Anybody? Public comment? All right. Any other comments from the commissioners? Can I have a motion, please?
Yes, I'll move to approve special use permit LU 2025-0150 based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval as listed in the staff report.
There's a motion by Commissioner Pizzell. Is there a second? Second. Commissioner Peterson said second. All those in favor, any further discussion?
That's Commissioner Brooks.
What'd I say?
Peterson.
I know, but I swear I saw his mouth move. All right, seconded by Commissioner Brooks. No further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Item 6B, discussion and possible action regarding a special use permit to construct and operate a single-story climate-controlled storage facility for personal storage and 5 separate single-story buildings for indoor storage of boats and recreational vehicles, as well as personal storage on 2 parcels totaling 4.78 acres in size, zone commercial, general commercial, and retail commercial, and located at 393 Eagle Station Lane, APNs 009-125-20 and 009-125-21. Heather.
Thank you, Heather Ferris, again for the record. The subject property, as you stated, is comprised of 2 parcels totaling 4.78 acres. Under the recently adopted master plan, it is designated as corridor mixed use. Previously, it was mixed use employment. The zoning is split with both retail commercial and general commercial districts across both parcels. As you can see in the photos a little bit, the site is sandwiched between the JCPenney Shopping Center and, to the west and the bank, a state building, and a townhome development on the east. The applicant is proposing the development of an indoor, single-story, climate-controlled personal storage facility on the northernmost parcel, which is on the right side of the screen, and 5 buildings with a mix of indoor RV, boat, and personal storage on the southernmost parcel. The facility will include a total of 382 units and will have a small office on the northernmost parcel. Personal storage, including indoor storage of boats and RVs, is allowed in the GC zoning district. However, personal storage is only allowed in the RC zoning district as part of a personal storage retail office complex. Per Carson City Municipal Code 18.04.020, where a parcel of land is divided by a zoning district boundary, the following shall apply. It states, to utilize the entire parcel with a use that is allowed in only one of the 2 zoning districts, a zoning map amendment or special use permit must be issued for that portion of the property not zoned for that use. Therefore, a special use permit has been requested to establish this use. Personal storage and interior storage is also required to meet Divisions 1.10 of the development standards. The staff report contains a detailed analysis of how those standards are being met, but I would like to highlight, because the project is adjacent to residential use to the east and the south, they are required to provide a minimum 20-foot landscape buffer and a solid 6-foot masonry wall between the storage units and the residential uses. and have limited hours of operation, and staff is recommending conditions of approval to ensure compliance with these requirements. We were also contacted yesterday by Southwest Gas, and they indicated that the northernmost parcel contains existing natural gas facilities that serve adjacent commercial buildings. And it was unclear as to whether or not the proposed building on the northernmost parcel would cover any of those gas lines. So to ensure that this concern is addressed at the time of permit, staff is recommending a condition of approval requiring the site plan submitted with the permit application to include the locations of existing and proposed dry utilities on the site. If buildings are proposed to be constructed over existing utilities or easements, the developer would be responsible for abandoning and relocating utilities and/or easements. There are 6 findings of fact that the Planning Commission must make in the affirmative in order to approve a special use permit. Staff has made all findings and is recommending approval subject to the 9 conditions of approval included in the staff report, as well as the additional one that's on the screen. I'm available for questions, and Dalen Roth is here representing the project.
Okay. I think, my question, I think, is for Stephen. Your condition number 9, can you explain condition number 9?
No. Condition 9 is.
Stephen Pote for the record. Condition 9 is with respect to our development standards. Typically, we don't see conditions that are code requirements, but since the plans specifically showed driveway spacing that didn't meet that standard, and there is potential that shifting that driveway might decrease the total footprint that they can get out of their buildings, we thought it was best practice to include that.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, quick question. From the
Commissioner
site-
Pizell, go ahead. Turn your mic on.
I think it is.
Okay.
It may just be my voice. From the site plan, it appears they'll be utilizing access and parking on the lot to the west of it. Should there be a reciprocal access and parking easement agreement between the two properties?
So if I understand correctly, you're saying that the J.C. Penney lot would be utilizing their access off of the northernmost parcel?
Correct. And it
There's
appear-
currently an existing reciprocal parking and access easement
Okay,
at that
thank you.
location. Yeah.
Any other questions? Is the applicant here? Can you come forward, please? Make the light go green. Now,
And I'm Dalen Roth.
all right, and you're familiar with the now 10 conditions of approval?
Yeah, the 10th one is new to us, but we'll definitely take a look at that.
Okay,
And out of all the other conditions for approval, the only one that could be difficult is number 9, 150 feet. We had our engineers calculate it, and we're 122 feet from the nearest driveway. But that driveway on the property next to us, we also own that parcel next to us. And that driveway is only used by loading trucks for the retail stores. It's not a common access point for the parcel next to it.
okay.
So we would need somewhat of a variance of 38 feet for that reason. And we had the engineers and looked at our traffic study, and we don't have much traffic for that lower parcel, and there is no traffic for the other driveway next to it. So
Okay. I noticed you had a sign out. You're either optimistic or presumptuous.
It was to hopefully deter other self-storages from going up right next to us.
Well, I guess we're not in the position, or at least I'm not in the position of negotiating recommended conditions of approval. So I guess,
Mr. Chair, we're looking, Stephen's looking right now to see if there's any ability for the city engineer to have any type of exception related to condition number 9. And we can build that into the language.
well, are there any other questions for the developer? Yes? Yes? I'm sorry.
Okay, first of all, I would just like to thank the Roth family because the Roth family, several years ago, we had a situation where we had a vacant Walmart there for a long time. And we do appreciate the Roth family coming in there and bringing it in and bringing retail back to Carson. And the Hobby Lobby is a great asset. So tell your dad, tell Dimitri, we appreciate him. Thank you.
I will definitely let him know. He'll really appreciate that.
Well, is there any public comment at this time? Dennis?
I may need one of your storage centers. How much are they? The main thing is Denny French, Carson City, thank you very much. And to me, it's looking good. The only considerations for me as far as concerns are the fire entrances and exits. And it seems like they're limited on exits, even an emergency one should, I think, be available inside that high density of the larger item storages. And then when it breaks down into the smaller ones, that seemed to me there was no change in the capacity of the drives. So my concern are those, and I'm sure the fire department will give that a look over, and if they say it's okay, I certainly will. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Want to continue this for a few minutes? No, I think we're good. You got it? All right, go ahead, Heather.
I'll jump in.
Or Stephen?
So I think if we limited condition 9 to be just the second sentence of the two, then if there is wiggle room in that development standard, on first blush, it looks like there potentially might be, but it's a little tough to make the call on the fly here. But if by removing that first sentence, we're essentially just saying you have to meet the development standards. And then if the development standards do allow for some sort of variability, then we can use that.
Okay, so you're saying eliminate the first sentence?
Correct. So that would read, with the submittal of the site improvement permit, the applicant shall demonstrate compliance with the required minimum driveway spacing as detailed in Carson City Development Standards 12.12, Table 12.12.
Okay. You accept that?
Yeah, we can accept that.
And you accept number 10?
And yep, we can accept number 10.
Okay. Any further discussion? Motion? Go ahead. Commissioner Brooks.
I move to approve LU 2025-0151 based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval contained in this staff report with the following changes. Condition 9, striking the first sentence. New condition 10, the site plans submitted with the site improvement permit and building permit must include the locations of existing and proposed dry utilities on the site. If buildings are proposed to be constructed over existing utilities and/or easements, the developer shall be responsible for abandoning and relocating utilities and/or easements.
I second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner DeChristopher. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6C, LU 2025-0152, discussion and possible action regarding an application for a special use permit to replace a temporary cellular facility with a permanent 100-foot tall stealth monopine wireless communications tower and associated equipment to eliminate a gap in the wireless service coverage in a site zone general commercial located at 1281 North Roop Street, APN number 002-123-06. Heather 2.
Good evening, Heather Manzo for the record. So I wanted to just note that with the adoption of the master plan that went into effect on May 1st of this year, this property has a master plan land use designation of corridor mixed use. And of the allowable or conforming zoning districts within that master plan designation, GC or general commercial is one of those conforming zones. So the site's located to the north of East William Street and to the south of Corbett and to the east of the cemetery that's located en route. The proposed site is currently providing for Verizon coverage via a cellular on wheels, which they call a cow. That was approved by the Planning Commission late last year as a temporary placeholder until they could find a permanent facility location. So this proposal is for that permanent location located just to the east of where the existing cow is on the same property. So the permanent location is over 700 feet from the nearest residentially zoned property. Code requires that it be at least 400 feet because of the height of the proposed tower. It's 4 times the height. So the applicant did provide in their application materials a demonstration that they're far exceeding the minimum requirement for setback. And while there are no standards to require distance from commercially zoned properties that have residential uses on them, there is a residential use on 002-12303, which is on the bottom left of the slide here. And so the cow is located to the west of the proposed site. The applicant intentionally located their permanent location as far to the east as they could to separate a little or provide a little bit more distance from the residential use. And I wanted to state that it's worth noting that the public comment paragraph on page 6 of the staff report noted a comment that had been received actually for the cow application. It's something that was inadvertently included with this request in the staff report. So I haven't received any public comments on this item, and I just wanted to clarify that for the record. So this slide shows the proposed elevation of the stealth monopine telecommunications facility. It's proposed to be 100 feet tall in total. Code for telecommunications facilities puts a maximum cap of 120 feet on these types of uses. So the applicant has done a study, and I'll show that a little bit later, to demonstrate how this height will provide for adequate coverage in this area. The structures are proposed to be 100 feet tall, and the monopine tower will be constructed to accept additional co-location in the future should other wireless providers wish to co-locate at this site. And the lease area, I'll note, it's 30 feet by 30 feet with a total of 900 square feet in total, and it's internal to the site. So this is a coverage map showing the coverage with the cow in place. So the green is coverage when you're in a building, the yellow is when you're driving, and then the gray is when you're outside. So there's a lot of gray and a lot more yellow here. And then the coverage map, once the 100-foot tall monopine is established, pretty much closes the gap on the coverage to the west of the site.
You're saying green are good?
Green is good, yes. Yeah. And then the applicant did provide photo simulations from 5 different locations. Those are all in the application package. I think I only included 4 in my presentation. So this is looking southwest on Corbett toward the site. The top is before, and then the bottom is going to be with the cell facility. This one is looking east from Roop Street, looking north from William Street, and then looking west from further down on William Street. So staff was able to make all of the necessary findings to recommend approval of this request, and the applicant is here to address the commission at the appropriate time. Thank you.
On, Heather, on condition number 9, don't you think we ought to paint it green? We got enough dead trees around. I know this is, it's pretty much boilerplate, but I think we're talking primarily about the ground equipment that's there.
Correct.
And I don't
in
have
the
a problem
structure.
with that, but I don't want a brown monopole.
Absolutely.
So-
Yeah, we can modify that to include the tree structure to be green.
Yep.
Okay.
And also, we did one of these before here recently, and one of the conditions of approval was a request for maintenance, an assurance of maintenance on the greenery, because the one we originally looked at looked like it'd been in a storm for 3 months and was pretty sad looking. This looks nice the way it is, but I want to see if explore a way to see if there's something we can put in this to make sure it's maintained.
Yeah, we absolutely can. I thought about that kind of after the fact, and I have a condition drafted if the commission would like to hear it to.
Yep.
Okay.
I would.
So in terms of a maintenance condition, the applicant must maintain the monopine in a manner where damaged screening branches or materials are replaced to their originally approved state to adequately stealth the mounted equipment on the tower for the duration of the project.
Wonderful. Okay. Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, is the applicant here? I just need the decision maker here. If we need to swap out, we can.
Yvonne Pinto, Verizon Municipal Engagement.
I'm Dina Manis with Epic Wireless.
Okay. And of the 12 and now 13 conditions of approval, can you accept those?
We can.
Okay.
I've read through them.
No, I just want to know if these are acceptable to you.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
You're not going to paint the tree brown.
No,
Not if you don't
not,
want it
not
brown.
if you
I don't want
want
it brown. You can paint the equipment brown, that's fine.
Okay.
But our condition didn't make that very clear, so I think the tree needs to stay green.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? No? Okay. All right. Commissioner
I wanted,
Christopher?
I'm not a fan of this, but I know that it's one of those essentials, right? But I did note when I looked at the pictures, I like that it now looks like the pawn shop has some landscaping. So we got that.
Thank you for your positivity.
Yes.
There, any other comments from the commission? Public comment? Thank you all.
This is one of the main, I'm sorry, Denny French, Carson City, Nevada, thank you. This is one of my main considerations for this particular agenda, in that, as I already mentioned, findings that I just finished looking at the most recent, so I'm not doing 10 years ago of study. But I did want to say that having these towers closer and closer, and the more that we expand, the more towers we will get. In this case, my concerns are that the apartments there seem closer than what originally was considered for the towers from the last set of towers that were even considered in the community. And the cow that it's on has to go by, I was looking up the FCC and that didn't go there. So I had to go to another site that would say the building and the structure. And the height of that tower would include a bigger, I believe, cow. And since I don't have the measurements in front of me, I won't try to do that. But I don't think the base that it's on will be significant. I would be able to ask if she were able to answer, the size of the present one. And I believe that the cow was only allowed to be the size it was because of the area it was in. So they had to restrict the height to relate to the cow's size. And so my thought was that original considerations for a tower there of a temporary might have, because they couldn't find a location that would rent to them or that they could get the land to do it. So whatever agreement they've come on, that's good and they're there. But I am concerned about the height per ratio of that base and also the supportive structures that will have to be involved in this as well. So those are my concerns. But also I just want to keep letting people know 5G is a whole different critter. And we're relating to that every day in our environment and encourage us to consider the basics of Cincinnati's deal that after they found out, oops, we're having problems. We're having heat spaces and they're doing these little oases, not what I would like in the fact of a group of lands put aside for habitats. This is basically for insects and smaller critters. And start thinking about the land the state might have available or that the federal government will be. And even though a lot of people say we've got too much area to keep track of now, I think it'd be well worth our consideration to look to see what's available or coming up and maintain those around town. Thank you very much.
Heather? Any comment?
Sure. So I think what the public commenter was mentioning is an interest in the height of the existing cow. So that is 67 feet tall today, and it does meet the minimum distance requirement from the residentially zoned property, which is to the northwest of this project. If we're speaking of the apartments that are on William Street themselves to the southwest, those are commercially zoned, and there are no standards in code to require a setback or distance from residential uses on commercially zoned property. So the cow did meet the standard, and the new tower is actually located further to the east, so it'll be a further distance away from the residentially zoned property and from the residential use on William Street.
Okay, thank you. Any further comment? Commissioners? You ready for a motion?
I would like to clarify that the cow can only go so high, too. That's as far as the disparity and the reason the monopine is the height it is to allow meet with the code for co-location, which a cow cannot do.
Okay, thank you. A motion? Somebody? Nobody wants to. All right, I'll move to approve the special use permit LU 2025-0152 based on the ability to make the required findings and subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report. Is there a second?
Quick question, do you want to include the maintenance condition and the
Oh, yes.
alteration of condition number 9?
As conditioned in the staff report with the exclusion of item number 13 for maintenance that was previously read to us. And we're going to ensure that the monopole is green.
I got it. Thank you.
All right,
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6D, ZA 2025-0149, discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation of the Board of Supervisors concerning a request for a proposed ordinance amending the zoning map to change the zoning properties within the La Ranch North Pacific Plan Area, SPA, from approximately 18.54 acres of single-family residential, 6,000 feet, SF6 SPA, and 0.13 acres of public community, PC-SPA, to multifamily housing, MFA-SPA, on a site approximately 24.7 acres in size located at 699 North Lampa Lane, Assayers parcel 010-542-01 and 010-741-04. Heather?
Thank you. So this project is located on the east side of I-580 and is highlighted, the larger parcel's highlighted in blue on this slide, and then there's a little triangular piece along Airport Road that's orange. So those are the two parcels that are under consideration today. As you may remember, when we were going through the master plan update, the applicant acquired this property kind of in the midst of our master plan update. And so they had met with staff to discuss a request to potentially file for a master plan amendment. We were so late in the master plan update that it didn't really seem reasonable to have a standalone item come through as we're moving through the master plan approval process. So Hope incorporated that as part of the presented materials with the master plan update. So the property has a master plan land use designation of high density residential across the whole site. A portion of the larger parcel already was high density residential, and the little triangle was as well. So this has been updated with the new master plan. And the existing zoning is split zoned. So the northern portion is multifamily apartment and the southern portion is SF6. And then that triangle was a small remnant piece of property that the city owned when Airport Way went through. It was part of the larger parcel that's to the east of Airport Road. So it's essentially a parcel that wasn't really usable by the city for any reason. So the board did approve the sale of that, and the applicant has acquired that property. So the proposal is to change the zoning on both parcels to MFA across the site, still within the Lampa Ranch SPA. And staff has made all of the necessary findings for the Planning Commission for our recommendation to you to approve or recommend that the Board of Supervisors approve. I did not receive any public comments on this request, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Ken Crater is here with the applicant team to address any questions you may have.
Okay, so as I look at this, it just looks like we're consolidating the land use. We haven't changed any of the specific plan requirements all the way through this property. We're just putting all this in one bucket.
That's exactly it. And one of the things that the applicant had noted is earlier on one of our other items, there was a request for a special use permit to use one of the allowed uses across the entire site. What that does is poses some development challenges where you're trying to incorporate a design that meets different standards in terms of height and setbacks and things of that nature. So the applicant filed a zone change request in this case to make the color the same, to make those applicable standards the same, so they can design to the same standard across the site.
Who's applying? I mean, is this action from staff or is this from civilian?
So this is an application from the property owner to you.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions from staff, for staff? Is the applicant here?
Good afternoon. My name is Ken Crater with Crater Consulting Group, representing the ownership group on this project. And we're in full concurrence and agreement with the staff report and excited to get this project moving forward. And we do feel that rezoning the entire property to multifamily apartment will basically just help carry out the vision of the North Lampa Ranch specific plan. And also want to thank staff. We've taken up a lot of their time with a lot of meetings to go through a lot of important details, but those have helped us develop better projects. We're excited to move this thing forward and hope that you support this request.
And you all have obtained that little piece of property?
Yes.
And is it gonna be incorporated into, is it gonna have its own APN or will it be incorporated into?
So for right now, it has its own APN. With some of the meetings that we've had that Ken mentioned, there are probably about 8 or 9 steps from here on out to kind of implement their vision. So we anticipate that there will be a merger of the 2 parcels into one at some point.
That's primarily a staff function, not.
That's correct. That
You
can
don't
be
have to
done.
come back to us or go to the Board of Supervisors or.
Yeah, that's right. It can be done administratively.
Okay.
This is mapping heaven for land surveyors. We've had abandonments, lot line adjustments, parcel maps, but we're getting it all cleaned up, so.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Public comment? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Denny French, Carson City. This is a perfect example of what we should not be doing. That little corner of property would have made a stopway or an insect rest or an oasis, whatever you'd like to call it. And I think we're passing those times up, just saying it's just too inconvenient to have or to make a developer have to work around. And if we keep with that attitude, we're not going to gain anything for what I think is an important part of our community's needs, insects and those type of things. And especially since insects now, bees especially, are now considered wildlife. And so if we're not going to keep places like that's little corner of property and others that we've given away since I've been coming to meetings, shame on us. That's all I can say, but thank you.
Any further public comment? All right. Board? Anything to say? All right. Commissioner Preston?
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval for the zoning map amended ZA-2025-0149 as presented.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, who seconded? Oh. Thank you, Commissioner Brazil. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Oh. Now we get the Mifwick. Item 6E, ZA 2025-0199. Discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors regarding an ordinance related to zoning establishing previously regarding an ordinance relating to zoning establishing various provisions concerning temporary use permits and providing for the matters and providing other matters properly related thereto. Hope.
Thank you. Okay, so what we're about to talk about, the temporary use permits, actually came up when the Planning Commission, the board were reviewing Title 18 and the Title 18 update. Previously, and actually current code, have conflicting regulations regarding the duration of use when you're talking about temporary use permit and whether or not the temporary use has to be, quote, customarily related to the primary business of the property. So we had conflict. In updating Title 18, the board left that regulation alone, which is why we still have conflict today, even though we've just done the Title 18 update, and said, look, this is going to take some energy. We want to put energy into it, but not today. Bring it to us after the full package of Title 18. So on February 21st, 2025, the Board of Supervisors had a focused discussion during a work session. At that work session, the consensus of the board was, one, to limit the temporary event to a maximum of 60 days per year and up to 2 times per year, with each event not exceeding 30 days. The consensus of the board was also that the temporary use does not need to be customarily related to the primary business on the property. So this proposed ordinance reflects the consensus of the board from that meeting on February 21st, and it eliminates the conflicting language. The board did not discuss, and the staff did not point out at that point, that there was also conflict and is conflict about in what zoning districts a temporary use permit can be issued. The proposed code and the existing code limit temporary use permits to the retail commercial, the general commercial, and the industrial zoning district. Well, there's actually not a zoning district called industrial. A different portion of the previous zoning code limited temporary use permits to, quote, commercial, industrial, and public zoning districts. So staff's going to recommend that we utilize the term non-residential zoning districts. And we just say you can have a temporary use permit in a non-residential zoning district. That way we don't have to worry about what the zoning district's called. Also, subsection 10 of the proposed ordinance refers to a person, how many times a person may have a temporary use. I think that's and I see Commissioner Pizell nodding knowingly, is there's a flaw in using the term person, because you can have 5 persons associated with an entity, so they just keep coming in. Well, it wasn't me, it was him. It's all the same entity. So I'm going to suggest that we use the term entity instead of person. It's a subtlety, but it will just be easier to enforce. So per Municipal Code 1802-0451, the Board of Supervisors has the authority to amend the municipal code. In the case of Title 18, the Planning Commission conducts a public hearing and makes a recommendation to the board. The Planning Commission may recommend approval after finding that each of the 3 required findings of fact can be made in the affirmative. And those findings of fact are on page 2 of your staff report. Staff does believe the 3 required findings of fact can be made in the affirmative and recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval with the modifications to the Board of Supervisors of the proposed text amendment. And the staff is the applicant. There's not a civilian applicant, as the chair put it. And I'm happy to answer questions.
So the condition number 10 that's in here is the one that you're proposing, or you want to change it?
If you look at page 1 of the staff report, you'll see the proposed motion, and I include in the proposed motion with the following changes. And I call out the reference to non-residential zoning districts, and I also call out that we replace the word person with an entity.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Brooks.
Hope, can you give us an example of how these permits are currently being used?
We had one recently at Gold Dust West Casino. They had RV sales on the property for a handful of days. And so people came there, they looked at RVs, considered buying an RV. The customers there also got access to the casino, so there was some synergy there. We've also seen it where, for example, I use the example in the code of a circus at the mall. We've had situations where the circus is set up under the tent at the parking lot of the mall. Well, the circus isn't what happens at the mall, but there was sufficient room in the parking lot to accommodate that for a period of time. So those would be 2 easy examples.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Public comment? Hearing none. Motion?
Yes, I move to recommend to the board approval of the requested zoning code amendment based on the ability to make the findings as outlined in the staff report with the following changes. Number 1, references to retail commercial, general commercial, and industrial zoning districts be changed to quote-unquote non-residential zoning districts. And number 2, references to person in subsection 10 be changed to entity.
Thank you, Commissioner Pizell. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner DeChristopher. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item ZA 2025-0200. Discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation of the Board of Supervisors regarding an ordinance related to the design standards in the downtown mixed-use district concerning street vending and street vendor carts and providing for other means properly related thereto. Heather.
Hope.
Hope. Yeah, you
It's
can be Hope
okay.
today.
Hope Sullivan. Okay, so the city has 2 redevelopment areas. Redevelopment Area 1 is generally the downtown area, and it was created in 1986, and it's going to expire in 2031. Redevelopment Area 2 is generally South Carson Street. It was created in 2004 and will expire in 2034. In 1993, the Redevelopment Authority and the Board of Supervisors created a citizens committee to review developers' requests for incentives and to recommend incentive packages to the Redevelopment Authority. For the past 5 years, the Redevelopment Authority and the Board of Supervisors has prioritized spending on infrastructure and not providing incentives to individual businesses. Consequently, there's no business before the Citizens Committee. Staff is recommending that the board dissolve the committee, but it can't dissolve the committee because in the development standards, the Redevelopment Advisory Citizens Committee gets to decide if you can have a vendor's cart in the downtown. So the proposed amendment would change that authority from being giving the Redevelopment Advisory Citizens Committee the authorization to approve a vendor cart to assigning that responsibility to the director. All other standards would remain. Again, per Municipal Code 1802-0451, the Board of Supervisors is authorized to amend the code. The Planning Commission conducts a hearing and makes a recommendation to the board. You recommend approval only if you can make the 3 required findings of fact in the affirmative. I believe you can make these findings in the affirmative, and it's outlined in the staff report. And so I am recommending that you recommend approval of this amendment to the Board of Supervisors.
Hope, is the Redevelopment Advisory Cities Commission or Committee staffed right now?
I am the staff to that committee.
But are there?
Oh, are
committee
they,
members?
is it manned up?
Yes.
The terms have primarily expired, and we haven't bothered soliciting applications because there really hasn't been any business before them.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Preston.
Yeah, I have a, I have a question because the monies that came to those redevelopment districts, actually, I don't know where they all come from, but I understand that we have quite a pot of money for that right now. And my question would be, is I know the legislature just changed it where they could use it on city projects and things like this. My question would be is, so there will not be any more public input into this? It will only be Board of Supervisors and staff?
Okay, 2 things. First, the answer would be no, no is the answer. If the question is, will there no longer be public input? The answer is no, there will still be public input. The Redevelopment Authority and the Board of Supervisors will all take action at public meetings, and the public will have an opportunity to comment on that. The Redevelopment Advisory Citizens Committee has not been meeting because there's been no business to put before them because there are no incentive packages being contemplated. That said, what is before this commission today is to simply reassign responsibility for a vendor's cart from the Redevelopment Advisory Citizens Committee to the director. What the board chooses to do with the Redevelopment Advisory Citizens Committee, I don't know. I know what my recommendation is, but I don't know what the board will do. But I think right now we have no vendor carts. We haven't had vendor carts since my tenure here, which is almost 10 years. So it's not a big responsibility, and all other standards will remain the same. So I think the director can handle that.
I have one more question. Is this only limited to the redevelopment areas? The reason that I'm asking is that this weekend I drove by Jackson's, and right there where the little Nevada sign is, there was a gentleman there with a big container of something that he was selling on the corner. And I sincerely doubt that there was a vendor license involved in it. And my question is, would you have authority over that? Would the police have authority over it? Who has authority over the guy selling juice?
Actually, I was in a meeting on that very topic at 1 o'clock today, and we can address vendor carts that are where they shouldn't be from a code enforcement perspective, and we will be doing that. That said, there is a limitation on where vendor carts can go per the municipal code, Title 18, and it's limited to the downtown mixed-use area. It's not a function of it being in a redevelopment area or not. It's based on the zoning.
Hope is a food truck a vendor cart?
No.
Okay. Any other questions of staff?
Just a quick question, Hope. Should we reference the specific section in the proposed motion similar to the previous code amendment? I'm sorry, should we reference the specific section that we're proposing to amend similar to the previous code amendment? In the motion? Sorry. Okay.
That would be helpful.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
In that case, I'd like to make a motion.
Please go ahead.
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval of the requested zoning code amendment based on the ability to make the findings as outlined in the staff report, changing in section 6.692 vendor carts, the approval authority being removed from the Redevelopment Advisory Citizens Committee and replaced by the director.
Okay. That good? Sir? I need a second. There you go. Mr. Peterson, pardon? I'm sorry. Is there a public comment?
Thank you. No, that's okay. Thank you. The question didn't come up beforehand. Denny French, Carson City. I appreciate the fact that it went through where it did because I was better informed to make this statement and question. If there is a pool of money anywhere, why is that not, was not addressed, I don't think, in the budget? And then would that have to be then realigned with a new activity or a new resource as far as other people picking into that? Who would be eligible to get that money? Would the arts or would recreation or open space, or where would that be distributed? So those are the questions that this brought up for me. Any commission, committee, or authority that's closing down, there should maybe be some notice, and I'm not privy to everything on a computer because I don't get to them often enough, but it would be good to maybe advertise that. That might be a starting place for somebody that would like to get involved and at least show up for whatever business did come their way, because that's good practice. Thank you.
Okay. We don't have any money in this commission.
No, what's before this commission right now is to reassign the authority to allow a vendor cart in the downtown from the Redevelopment Advisory Citizens Committee to the director.
All right, and we have a motion to do that, and we have a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. And Denny, I apologize.
No, and I apologize because the question was your fault.
All right.
Mr. Chair, if you'd like, what we can do, since it is 5:03, is we can, and the DA's office can advise how to do this, but rather than taking my reports now, maybe, you're not adjourning as the Planning Commission, but maybe you are. Go ahead into the Growth Management, have the Growth Management Commission meeting, and then when you're done with the Growth Management Commission meeting, we can reconvene as the Planning Commission, and I can give my report at that point.
So are we gonna, can we recess?
Do they recess? Is that the right term? Should they? The growth management is not before 5 o'clock, it's now 5:04. So do they recess as the Planning Commission, convene as the Growth Management Commission, conduct their business as the Growth Management Commission, and then they can call the Planning Commission back to order?
How about this? How about if we adjourn for about 10 minutes?
I don't want you to adjourn, I don't think. I think I want you to recess. You may recess and
Recess.
take a 10-minute break?
Take a 10-minute break.
Okay, and then when
we
you
can
come back,
we
you'll
can
be the
come
Growth
back, and then
Management
at the
Commission.
discretion of the chair, maybe I can move item 7 to the end of the meeting.
Okay, I will have your script ready when you come back.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. All right. We'll be back here at 10 after. like to recess the planning commission meeting and call the Growth Management Commission to order. And Tamara, would you call a roll, please?
Chair Borders,
Present.
Vice Chair Cron, Commissioner DeChristopher, Commissioner Brooks, Commissioner Preston, Commissioner Pizell,
Here.
Commissioner Peterson. We have a quorum.
Thank you. The public is invited at this time to comment on any topic that's relative to the matter over which this public body has supervision, control, jurisdiction, and advisory power, including any such matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. No action will be taken on matters raised during this period for public comment. Is there public comment at this time on the Growth Management Commission? Hearing none, the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of May 29th, 2024. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? And there, you will find them in your late material. Same minutes, they're just reformatted.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to clarify, the approval date was for today. So that was, like, the minutes were done a year ago and we
I'm
didn't have
sorry,
an approval.
it's the approval of the minutes of May 29th,
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is the only difference between late material and old material is the approval date. We had to insert the approval date in.
Okay.
Quick question for our legal counsel. I was not on the Growth Management Commission a year ago, but being the obsessive compulsive person that I am, I did review the videos. The question is can I vote on the minutes based on my review of the videos of the meetings?
Yes, you may, because you've reviewed them and you can make a
Thank you.
vote on that.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please? Commissioner Preston.
I move to approve the minutes of the growth management meeting from Wednesday, May 29th.
I second the motion.
Seconded by Commissioner DeChristopher. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. GM 2025-0161. Oh.
Thank you.
Let me read the
Oh,
caption.
go ahead and read it.
Discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation of the Board of Supervisors for a resolution establishing the maximum number of residential building permit allocations under Chapter 18.212, the Growth Management Ordinance of the Carson City Municipal Code for the years 26, 27, estimating the maximum number of residential building permits for the years 28 and 29, and establishing the number of building permit allocation within the development and general property owners categories, establishing a minimum average daily water usage rate for commercial and industrial building permits as a threshold for the Growth Management Commission review.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Planning Commission tonight is, the Growth Management Commission. This is your annual meeting. You have 3 things to do, and you will be making a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. The 3 items before you are to establish the number of residential building permits to be made available for the next 2 calendar years. But you do this every year. So even though you're saying for 2 calendar years, next year you're going to do this all over again. And you also do estimates for years 3 and 4. You're going to establish the distribution between the general property owner category and the development project category, which is somebody who builds or obtains more than 31 housing starts in the first quarter of the year. You will also be, and this is third and final, establishing the maximum average, or you'll be recommending on, establishing the maximum average daily water usage for commercial and industrial building permits as a threshold, which if a development's going to go over that threshold, it's subject to the review of the Growth Management Commission. In your packet, you have input from the Fire Department, Public Works, Parks and Recreation, the Sheriff, and the School District. With you tonight is the Fire Chief, the Public Works Director, the Parks and Rec Director, the Sheriff, and we also have our Utility Manager, Andy Hummel, and our City Engineer, Darren Anderson. None of the correspondence that you received suggests limiting development past more severely than the 3%. The proposal before you tonight is to stay at a 3% growth rate, which would yield 774 housing starts in 2026. Stay at the division of 43%, 57% between the general and the developer categories, and stay at the 10,000 gallons per day average for the threshold of water use for industrial and commercial uses. We're going to go through some slides that were in the packet, but I want to kind of walk through these with you. What this slide's showing, and again, it's in your packet, is it's showing the number of allocations in the white bar, and then the red bar is the number of building permits actually issued. So you can see we're consistently well below the number of permits that could be allocated. This chart was actually corrected from what's in the staff report. You'll see that in the developer category since 2018, that's the black line that's flat at the bottom. We're not issuing any permits in the developer category. We did in 2025 because the apartment complex at Stewart and William Street was permitted in January and obtained its growth management. So that will show up in the 2025 numbers. For the most part, what we're finding is developers aren't carrying inventory. So they're only building as they can sell. And so we're really between January, February, March, we're not having a single person come in for more than 31 housing starts, with the exception of an occasional apartment complex. This one shows the allocation by type. So you can see it's primarily single-family detached, which is the yellow. The orange are apartment complexes, or the multifamily. And the purple is our single-family attached. So those are the townhouse products that you've seen throughout the city. And so clearly, we're seeing, although the lot sizes are varying, we're seeing primarily single-family detached when we look at the residential units. This was a graph that the chairman asked me to include, and I think it's really, really good that we did that. This chart does not show you the land that's allocated as federal and state land in the master plan. Federal and state land comprises 56.65% of the land use map. So that's not like if there's a building there. If there's a building there, it got the P category, the public quasi-public. This is just the vacant land that surrounds the city is 56%. So we took that out to see for the land that could be developed, how was that land allocated? Because there was a lot of questions about with the new master plan, where were we really putting an emphasis in terms of land development? So what you'll see here is over 30% of the land that's available for development is conservation reserve. That's a minimum lot size of 20 acres for a single home. Next is 21% is open space. So that's private or public open space. 11.49% is public, so that means it's being used as a public building or a public facility. It might be like a drainage basin, so it's built, it's not vacant. And then low-density residential comprises over 15%. The high density, when we take away the 56% that's state and federal, high density is 1.81% of the land. So I think we all heard concerns that there was an emphasis on high density, and in this chart showing you something different than that. The state demographer, of course, gives us our numbers. The certified number for July 1st, 2024 is 60,266. The state demographer is expecting our growth in the next 5 years will be less than 1% per year and slowing down. Median sale prices. This isn't directly correlating to growth management, but we always include this slide because it's interesting. And so since 2012, the cost of a house has been increasing. And then between 2023 and 2024, we saw it reduced. So that was interesting. And the next slide you're going to see, and then condos and townhouses and manufactured homes have stayed pretty flat for the last 3 years. In the next chart, you'll see the number of home sales it was reduced, and now more homes were available for sale. Our inventory increased. Not to say that's the sole correlation between a decrease in price, but to see that we did have an increased inventory, you have to believe that that helped contribute to a decrease in that price. So this bar graph shows you the number of home sales in 2024. This is the list of the growth management projects since '08. What we've started doing, starting in 2021, was we started putting timeframes on these so they'd actually expire. And we were tying them to the expiration date of the special use permit. We also, although we haven't had to use it yet since 2021, when the Growth Management Commission considers an industrial or commercial use that will use more than the threshold, you've asked for validation in the first 3 years to ensure that they are within that framework, and if they're using more water, that the appropriate fees be paid. The last 4 growth management approvals you provided have all expired. The RV resort did not have an expiration date but has not been built. The Capitol Mall has not been built. But the car wash at William Street, I think that's the, I can't think what it's called, but the one by the bank there, I think that is there. What's it called? Surf, that's it. So here's the proposal. So the permit alternative. So as I mentioned, I am recommending that we stay with the 3%, which would mean in 2026, it would be allowing up to 774 housing starts, in 2027, 802, and staying with the 43%, 57% split between general and development. I have also provided for you the alternatives using a 2.5% growth rate and a 2% growth rate if you want to consider making a recommendation on those. I think that's my last slide. Yep. So now what I'd like to do is I do have, actually, I'll do this really quick. This is just a snapshot of what's going on in terms of land development right now, just so you're aware. That's the map. So residential projects under construction, we have a smattering east, west, north, south. So Adams Estates, those are 12 lots off Longview. And I think last I heard there were 3 lots left in there for sale. But the houses are going up there and they have been occupied. Altair Apartments, those are in William and Stewart, so they are under construction, 207 units. Ash Canyon is south of Anderson Ranch on the east side of Ormsby. That's it's not D.R. Horton, it's Toll Brothers. So they've gone vertical and their houses are under construction. Another Ash Canyon. Okay, Blackstone Ranch, this property is this America Homes for Rent? Or is this Ryder Homes? Ryder Homes. This is America Homes for Rent, and they are going vertical now, so they're over in Blackstone. Brown Street Apartments, Dwight Millard, he's the only person building out there, so he built a couple of the apartments, and he's building, I think, 2 more buildings. Cross Creek subdivision, this part is Ryder, and so they're still under construction over there. Eagles Landing on Roop, and I think it's Northridge, so they're under construction. Little Lane Village subdivision, they're still going. They'll go there. They started on Little Lane, and they're working their way north. Plateau subdivision, if you go way out near the Lyon County line, they're starting to go vertical out there. I drove out there, and they're moving pretty quickly. That's KDH Construction. Silver Oaks going steady, still building. But actually, they're on their last 2 phases, so we'll see what we say about them next year. They might be done. Silverview Townhomes are off Silver Sage and Clearview. Those are right by Southwest Gas. And then projects where that are approved, but the construction hasn't commenced. You have Blackstone Ranch South, which the board's been looking at this. This is south of Linear Park at the end of Railroad, and we're expecting that map to come in the next 30 days. Border Crossing is actually under construction. We have to update that. East Nye, this is the 16 acres across from the airport. You approved a tentative map, or the board approved a tentative map, and that tentative map will most likely expire. We haven't seen activity. Silver Oak Apartments, you saw a special use permit for this, but there is an entitlement right now through January 2026. You approved the special use permit, so we'll see. Stafford Way Apartments, actually, I think I saw them grading the other day over there on Silver Sage. And then commercial development, again, it's a spattering throughout the city. We have airport hangars constantly going in, airport snow removal, you saw that building. If anybody's wondering what's going on at College Parkway and the interchange by Walmart, everyone's like, what are they doing? I think it's 8 pads, and there's a Bank of America that will go vertical. El Centro's building out on 50, so their new grocery store. The hotel on North Carson's under construction. The dental office by Silver Oak is under construction, and it looks like it's almost done. Motorcycle storage is over up north on Boeing Way. Panda Express under construction on North Carson. Sierra Tahoe RV boat and self-storage is over off Airport Road near the Lampa subdivision, or the Lampa specific plan area. Sprouts and Planet Fitness are next to the between Home Depot and Walmart up north. There's a warehouse under construction on Mallory Way, which is just parallel to Fairview near Lowe's. And that will be for later. So that was just sort of the growth management. I thought I'd give you a snapshot of what was under construction. And what I want to do is have Darren Schultz, who's our Public Works Director, speak to the relationship between road maintenance and growth and development, because we're getting a lot of questions on that. And while he's talking, Andy Hummel will get his PowerPoint ready, and he'll present on water and sewer. And again, Fire Chief, Sheriff, and the Parks and Rec Director are all present if you have questions.
Okay. Go ahead.
Very good. Good evening, Darren Schultz, Public Works Director, for the record. Thank you very much, Hope. So we included in our memo to you from the department little sections on the various divisions as it's related to growth. But one I wanted to just briefly talk about here, don't have a presentation or anything, but is on the transportation side of things. We're mostly just to address some comments and concerns that we hear from the public as it relates to development and transportation. So it's just, we wanted to make sure that it was stated on the record and everybody understood here that these development projects that are coming in that Hope just went through, their impact to the condition of our roads is minimal. It's so minimal that we cannot measure it. So is there an impact of new developments being allowed in Carson City to the condition of our existing roads? Yes, there is. But that impact is small enough that we cannot measure it. And what I mean by that is they're not contributing enough trips to that road. The damage has been done over years, and these new developments aren't adding enough trips to where it's putting a big impact on them. If the road sits there and no cars drive on it, not additional cars, but 0 cars on it, the pavement is degrading, and that will happen. That's just how it works. So that's what's going on around town. Whether you have 1 car, 20 cars, 200 cars, 2,000 cars, that pavement is degrading, and that's just a fact of how that works. What development, how it does impact the transportation side is by putting more cars on the road causes a level of congestion that maybe we didn't see before. So now we'll get our thoughts out of the actual asphalt, which you know citywide we have very, very large problem with maintaining our asphalt, and it's degrading too quickly. But as it relates to congestion, yes, as we put more cars on the roads, various intersections around town, various segments of road, more cars, more congestion, it's going to slow you down. Level of service is going to go down as we continue to add vehicles. So our division within Public Works is looking at that and looking for projects and ways to mitigate that. In some cases, it's modifying the traffic signal at an intersection. At some ways, it's looking at adding turn lanes to try to get more traffic off the road. We're looking at, in terms of our transportation system, we're always looking at the way our traffic signals are timed one to the other, so you don't stop at every red light, hopefully. You catch a green and it should carry you through the corridor that you're traversing. So those are just a few of the ways that we're looking at mitigating that. Also, when a developer comes in, we make them do a traffic study. They have to look at how much traffic they're bringing to that area and the impacts they have, and then we put it back on the developer if there's things that they need to fix or address before it goes in. So very high level on the transportation traffic side of development. We are not concerned with this next year's recommendation of 3% in terms of the things that I just talked about. Whether one more lot gets developed or what's the number, 460 get developed? How much? 700. That's not going to impact the condition of our asphalt of Carson City roads, which a lot of people are talking about. It is an issue. We're aware of it, but that's not coming from the development side of things. We shouldn't put that at their feet. So I would be happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Can you give us an idea? I understand what you're saying about traffic in the roads and how they deteriorate, but how do we communicate that to the public? Because I don't think that's intuitive to somebody that has not studied it.
Yeah.
And the difficulty we have is with trying to convince people who are not engineers about.
Well, that's a good question, and that is specifically why I'm here tonight. Is to try to give that answer, and you can just repeat what I said. But it really comes down. They need to understand that if the road sits out there and no cars drive on it, in 25 years I have to replace that road.
Or we should replace that road.
Well, there you go. So it really does come down to that. Now, when you have, the condition of the asphalt, the deteriorating, a lot of things go into that. If you have a lot of heavy truck traffic, obviously that does a lot more damage to asphalt roads than, your passenger vehicles, that sort of stuff. But adding a few additional 0.5% of cars to the roadway surface, I can't measure it. It's so negligible. We don't have a way of measuring it. And nobody around the country measures it either. There's not enough that you can do as it relates to that.
Can you give us some idea of what the plans are for our streets in the next year? How many miles of maintenance are we gonna do? How many miles of seal coat are we gonna do?
Yeah, so that is actually going to our RTC, the commission, this next month, and they will. Staff makes a recommendation that says with the approximately $2.7 million that's available for these projects, these are the streets that we recommend we look at. And then the RTC makes that decision overall as to which ones we will tackle. So the first part of the money goes to our better arterial collector streets, our bigger streets that are still worth saving. So the first pot of money goes towards that to keep them good, because we don't want those to deteriorate to nothing. And then whatever money's left goes into more of our residential type of streets, neighborhood streets, to try to put a slurry there, do more crack filling, try to hold it all together. Like I say, that decision will be made in June, and I could give you the list of streets at that point as to what's going to be done. But it's a similar model than what we've done in the previous years. And then we do the districts, 5 districts around the city. So every 5 years, we're working in that area. Now, going forward, we had the 2 ballot questions that failed back in November. So going forward, we are awaiting directions and ideas in terms of what that will look like for additional funding in the future, where we might get that, or do we stick with the model that we have? We as staff are not going to give up. We're going to continue to try to find more ways to find funding.
And your June meeting with the RTC, is that every June? Kind of like this is
Yes. That happens because the new fiscal year is July 1, so
Okay.
those decisions are made in June.
What I would like to see then, Hope, is part of this can we include that in our documentation? I know it's gonna be a year behind, but it will give us something to track and something that we can hang our hat on as to what we're trying to do.
Sure, we can see if how it syncs up with this meeting. My requirement is to bring growth management, your recommendation to the Board of Supervisors by their second meeting in July. That's my requirement.
I don't wanna change
Okay.
that. And I recognize if they provide that data, it's gonna
Yeah.
be almost a year behind, but
Well, we can certainly, just once the RTC makes their recommendation to the board, we can bring you that.
Or we could bring if you don't mind, we could bring you the fiscal 25 year, the year we're just finishing up. Is that the information you're asking for, or are you asking for next year's?
Well,
Oh, yeah, we have that. We have all of those
Okay.
projects.
Well,
We could give you a list.
It would be good, the more ammunition that I think we as a board can have, we can better defend the decisions that are made. Like the Board of Supervisors, we get beat up all the time too.
Okay.
And
We could just add that in the memo.
that kind of data, would be very helpful to have.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, what we're trying to do too, and the reason Darren made his presentation, and Andy, of course, is we recognize that when you convene as the Planning Commission, you're challenged a lot. And I'm saying this more for the benefit of the newer members. The audience will come and say, you failed to contemplate water capacity. You failed to contemplate the condition of the roads. You failed to contemplate schools. You failed to contemplate crime. And so that's why we give growth management all this information, and why I really wanted Darren to spotlight what he spotlighted and what Andy's going to spotlight is because this is all data for when this comes up as you go through your projects.
Commissioner Brooks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an admittedly transportation dork question, but has your trip generation model changed in the last 5 or 10 years to reflect more people working at home? Or is it essentially X number of units, average household size of Y, outputs Z trips?
It's more the latter. That's a very good question. It's more the latter. We really saw, when COVID came, there was this huge dip where everything just stopped for a period of time, but it didn't really resonate after that with the groups of people still working from home. We really didn't notice a big difference as it relates to that, and now with even more people coming back, so I can't say that we had.
I would imagine it's metro area specific too,
Yeah,
right?
what we did notice was in some of the peak hour data gathering that we did, 8 a.m., 5 p.m., we noted that those rounded off. They weren't quite so sharp. There was less but it was just those peak hours. It wasn't the rest of the day that we really saw anything go down. So
Okay, so demand shifting rather than demand changing.
that's right.
Fair assessment.
That's
Okay,
accurate.
Thank you.
Commissioner DeChristopher?
Thank you. This may be inappropriate to ask you, but it has never stopped me before. She may. No. Do you, oftentimes when we're looking as planning commissioners at developments coming in, the conversation comes up about in the future, should we want developers to take care of the roads? Do you have an opinion on that, one way or the other?
Yeah, I think as long as it just goes down as my opinion, that probably would be all right. I think some of the low-hanging fruit is within a development, within one area is, I think we've done this a couple times in the past, but have a developer take care of those streets for longer if they can roll that into an HOA or something. So when you put a new road in, the perfect number is in 5 years, you want to put a slurry coat on top of that new asphalt. There's no cracks, there's no potholes, it looks really good. And everybody thinks, leave it alone, don't touch it. But in reality, at that 5-year mark, if you can put that first in, that extends that asphalt for another additional decade where it doesn't require maintenance. So that first overlay, slurry seal, that does make a big difference. So if we could get help in new developments or something like that, to me, that's relatively low-hanging fruit that we might try to figure out a day. The developers are conflicted by that because they're long gone, and so they don't want to come back. And if you don't have an HOA that you can build that in, the streets are owned by the city, not by the HOA. So you got to work those details out. But my personal opinion is that that would be something that would help. Again, our biggest concern are not the brand new roads that are getting built and turned over to the city. That's really not hardly on our radar. It's all the ones that are, potholed and alligator cracks. Obviously, the developer is not going to solve that problem.
Mr. Preston?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Darren. I think one thing that I would like that you offered to do is that after the RTC meeting next month is to go ahead and give that to us as the Planning Commission. So it is something that we have on record that what is anticipated to do, like I said, is that we do get beat up quite a bit and we don't have the answers for it, but if it's already here on the record and it shows that, yes, you are being proactive and not just sitting on it because the two-question measures did not pass. So that would be very helpful.
Very well,
Thank
no
you.
problem. I'll get that to Hope. She can get it to you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Sheriff Furlong. He's busy. We're gonna get him in and out of here. I'm sorry.
I have to
He
remember
arranged,
I'm
look
on
at all
a
those stars he's
microphone.
got.
Good morning, Sheriff Furlong, for the record. Oh, that's right. It's halfway
Sheriff,
through my day.
Sheriff, we hear all the time about how we're gonna have more people and it's gonna cause more crime. And I'd like to hear your comments.
That's really good, because I just came from the legislature. That's why I'm all dressed this way.
Oh, shucks.
No, I did this for you guys. Crime is measured predominantly by a system called the National Incident-Based Crime Reporting System. And as I look back over the last 3 years, just the last 3 years, we've been operating at a lower than expected call volume and calls for service in Carson City. It's a very bright future looking forward. The amount of activity that we have taking place is manageable by us. And that is within the expectations or the averages over the last 3 years. So we're actually doing very, very well.
Okay, and can you tell us something about your, the mental health teams that we have? I've forgotten what they're called, but I know, what do we have, 2 now?
We have 2 full-time mental health teams. That's a clinician and a officer that are combined and work together. Those 2 teams work with all of our partners throughout the community, and many of them are stepping up services in this town, such as Carson City Hospital. And so we're in a very good position as we move into this next budgeting year. I hope that I can field a 3rd team, because as we all know, the mental health crisis is not something that we can avoid. This is something that we have to work with. And by engaging those services in our community, in my opinion, then we tend to be able to reduce the challenges that our general public is facing when it comes to mental health. We can work stronger with families. We can work stronger with other organizations in providing those services.
Okay, so you're saying we're gonna be safe for another year if we let 500 more houses get built?
700.
I do not. I think you guys are doing a wonderful job. We're staying with the flow. As I said, for the last 18 months, close to 2 years, our call volume, that's the amount of calls coming into our dispatch center and the amount of calls going out to our patrol units to respond to or to answer, have been either below the averages over the last 3 years or not within the range that was expected, much lower than that. So it leaves me optimistic to be able to pay attention to other things as well.
Commissioners have any questions for Sheriff? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Danny, talk to him outside.
It's like, he needs to stick around, just.
Thank you, Sheriff. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
The gun.
Yes.
Okay, Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. For the record, Andy Hummel, Utility Manager for Carson City Public Works, and got invited by Hope to come in and present our annual water and wastewater capacity analysis update. See if this works here. It was. Yeah, it worked great. Until now it doesn't.
Need a 12-year-old.
Yep. Yeah, it's not responding to, it's not that, it's not moving.
You have an IT person coming.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, what'd you do there?
What are you doing? Just solving problems,
Yep.
evidently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
All right, we're gonna run with it.
All right.
Yeah. Sweet. So, as in terms of our utility, we have really three. We have water and wastewater, that falls under me. And then we also have a stormwater utility that falls under our streets division for that maintenance. Stormwater is a relatively small group. I think we have 5 staff members there between field crews and a couple of office people. But for the water and wastewater side, we take care of that system with a staff of 41. It's made up of water production and distribution technicians. We have our sewer collection system maintenance group, wastewater treatment, and the plant mechanical team. We have an environmental control division that manages all of our permits with businesses, make sure nothing bad is coming to the treatment plant that would potentially kill it. And then we also maintain a certified laboratory at our wastewater plant that tests our water and wastewater samples for regulatory purposes. In terms of looking at the capacity of those systems, it's really multifaceted. We look at our resource. Do we have the right to use the water? Is it available to use? What's our production and treatment capability, both on the domestic water side and the wastewater side? And then usually this comes in at more of a project level, but our distribution and storage capability, can we get the water to the area where it's needed? Can we get the wastewater to the treatment plant from that project? Things like that. Starting with our water system, it's comprised of about 350 miles of pipeline. We have 16 pressure zones, so it's a fairly complex system. We have 13 booster pump stations moving that water between those zones. We use 16 storage tanks around town. And then between those zones, we have about 60 pressure reducing or regulating stations, or PRVs, that regulate the pressure between those different areas so we don't have too much in one area. Our resources, we have about 75% of the water we produce is groundwater pumped out of wells. We use 21 active wells. We have about 32 total in the city. But for various reasons, about 11 of those are not available to us, either constituents in those wells, they've failed, things like that, so just don't get used anymore. We utilize a lot of blending sites between wells to manage things like arsenic, manganese, uranium, and then just timing of when we use certain wells only get used during the peak of summer, for example, things like that to maintain water quality. We also have an arsenic treatment plant that's currently inactive. We're looking at that in the future to hopefully bring that back online. And then the remaining roughly 25% is surface water. That's water we get from the Ash and Kings Canyon areas, and then also the Marlette Hobart water system. And then we also use 2 river induction wells. So those wells, they're located pretty close to the Carson River, and we utilize river surface water rights to operate those. We do have interconnections. We have one with Douglas County and town of Minden, where we have water rights and wells down there and pump that water into Carson City. We can get about 5 million gallons a day from that source. And then we also have an intertie with Lyon County that gets used more of an emergency type use. If they have a well go down or vice versa in that area, we can both get water from that system. In terms of water resources or our water rights, we own about 18,648 acre feet. That's a number of different sources that we have, or groundwater basins and such that we have those rights in. We have groundwater rights in Eagle Valley, Dayton Valley, Carson Valley. We have the water rights from the Marlette Hobart system that we can use. We don't technically own those, but under agreement use those. Those get used in our Quill treatment plant to produce water, or we can also use those rights to do recharge in the VC Canyon area. We use our Ash and Kings rights, as I mentioned, in our Quill water treatment plant. Those can also be used as well as the Marlette Hobart water. If we're not using it, we can release it into the Ash and Kings Creek systems, and those would flow to the river, and we can use those to offset the water that we would use in the river induction wells, essentially to be able to trade and maximize that usage. We do about 10,000 to 11,000 acre feet every year in production. So compared to that 18,600-ish number of available rights, we look pretty good, but it's important to remember that number is really, it's a paper right. We have the right to it, doesn't mean that it's guaranteed. Things like those rights are managed ultimately by the state engineer's office as they look to bring more science into how they manage things. Some of those rights get tied together, for instance, like a creek right versus a groundwater well right next to it. How much does that well influence what flows in the creeks? Maybe we don't get to use as much as the groundwater, things like that. That's something that's really happening in the Humboldt County or in the Humboldt River system right now. So we're really watching that to see how that could affect us long term. We also, just because we have rights in a well doesn't necessarily mean we can use that well all year round, either water quality concerns, or if we're impacting, other wells, things like that. So it's a balancing act to kind of see what we can use when and keep it managed. And then in the upper left corner there, we call out effluent reuse. That's water that we reuse from our treated water from the treatment plant, the wastewater plant. So we produce and use about 3,000 acre feet roughly every year that gets used at the area golf courses and the state prison farm. That really helps offset the domestic water need of the community. I mentioned our Quill water treatment plant. That plant is actually currently up for upgrades. It's offline right now. We took it offline late last year. That's about a $23 million construction contract we're currently performing with Resource Development. We were using a system when it was originally built. It was essentially large pool filters. It was diatomaceous earth, works really good for sediment, things like that. It does not like algae. And with the Marlette and Hobart system specifically, we get a decent amount of algae out of those later in the year, and it would clog really quickly. So we were getting roughly maybe 1 million gallons a day of water through that plant. We were maintaining it all the time. They're having to flush it a lot. So we were looking to, we really need to maximize our usage of that water. We don't want to lose it. So over the last roughly 5 years, we've pursued this project. We're changing to a package filtration, so basically it'll be more settlement and then using a mixed media, sand and gravels to filter that water, and then UV disinfection to disinfect. Once completed, it'll be a 4 million gallon per day capacity. We are building it with the capability inside. The plumbing will be in place. We can add a third filter train relatively easy and bring it to 6 million gallons a day. We are doing that project in coordination. The state is currently rehabbing the Marlette Dam. So they're doing some earthquake retrofits on that. They're draining it and essentially tear it out and rebuild it. It's going to be a fairly extended recharge period on that dam. If we get a wet winter like we saw in 23 right after it's done, it could fill up in a year. But if we get into a drought, it could take 7, 10 years. So felt it was probably, just given the price of things, we built Quill a little bit smaller because we couldn't use that water for a while anyway. So no use having infrastructure that's wearing out from lack of use. But as far as, what does that look like with that offline, as far as our resources, and I kind of put it up there in red, the Marlette Hobart system, where the water that we would have treated at Quill, we are still able to use it for recharge in VC Canyon, so we're maximizing that. We do as well, we're using it to transfer water to our river induction wells to be able to maximize our use of those 2 wells. And same with our Ash and Kings water rights, we're using those in those induction wells, and we don't have other water rights to offset that. We also look at drought and snowpack every year, just kind of get an idea of what kind of summer are we looking at. Are we going to see higher demands because we're getting into more of a drought situation? Are we going to see, is it a low snowpack year, and we're going to have to manage our river rights in a different way, use them earlier in the year, things like that. So for this year, that image on the top is kind of the drought outlook. We're in essentially the very first stage, a D0 or normally dry. That's kind of where we typically are even in a good year. So we're pretty happy with that. And then the bottom, we're roughly high 80s to low 90s as far as our snowpack. That was as of April 1st. So not really anticipating anything crazy as far as our runoff on the river, dropping out too soon or anything. And it is kind of interrelated with our wastewater side. If we get into an extended drought situation, we actually see less flow to the wastewater plant, just infiltration into the pipes that just slowly reduces as the ground dries out. So they're all kind of interconnected. In terms of our water system and what you as the Growth Management Commission care about, last year on a peak day in the summer, we produced 18.8 million gallons per day of water. With everything running good, we can produce about 26 million gallons per day. So we have some cushion there. With the Quill plant offline, we're closer to 24.5, 25 million gallons per day. We are relying on our Douglas County intertie to make sure that we have that in place. We did weeks of tests last summer, shut Quill off for a few weeks in the peak of the summer and proved to ourselves that yes, we can do this to make sure. But as far as our other numbers up there, our peak day in the summer, that 18.8 compared to the average winter production, 4.6 million gallons per day. That really kind of shows just how much of our demand in the summer is irrigation and cooling water. It's a pretty big swing. And then the chart below that, that's our annual delivered water in acre feet. It kind of varies depending on a wet year versus a dry year, but we are, like 2023, we kind of hit a low of 8,700 acre feet, 8,670, which is as wet as that spring was. It didn't seem like it quit raining until June. You know, that's, people turn on their sprinklers later. That's kind of the bulk of that usage, especially in the summer. So we saw that tick back up last summer. We expect it'll increase again this year, but we've been running about 10,000-ish acre feet a year that we sell. So there's a little bit of difference between what we produce and what we sell. That's our water loss, leakage through pipes, things like that. So we've been running about 7% on average over the last 5-6 years. We also, in terms of making our recommendation that yes, we can manage growth for the next several years, we don't just look at, hey, last year we only did, 9,100 acre feet. Things are great. I looked back the last, 5-6 years and picked an average and even look at the highest year to make sure that we're being as conservative as possible, because that does vary year to year depending on the weather conditions.
Andy, can I ask you a question on this
Yes,
chart?
absolutely.
It looks to me like in the last 16 years, we've used less water and our population has grown significantly.
Yeah, and that population.
How do you make those?
Yeah.
I know somebody's going to tell me I'm crazy,
Yep.
but how do you make those two work?
Yeah, there's a combination of things happening there. The population data, I should probably skew that a little more in future graphs because it's really it's not a huge jump. So it's making that population growth look pretty dramatic. But the important number of why, say, 2008 to 2010, we were at 12,000 acre feet a year, and then that's dropped to 10 to 11,000 acre feet a year. That's largely water conservation. We started metering in that time frame as well and implemented tiered rates. That helped a lot as, people, that first 5,000 gallons a month that everybody kind of uses to maintain their household, that's a lower rate. And then as it goes higher and higher for landscaping, they pay exponentially more. We really saw a pretty dramatic reduction. Yeah. We get the complaints with it, but yeah. And we're seeing just a development trend with new homes. There's much less lawn. People are more xeriscape, things like that. We're just seeing less irrigation usage.
Well, if we had the winter production all year long, we could all bathe 3 times a day.
Yeah, we'd be in great shape.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Commissioner Brooks, did you have a question? No, you addressed it. Thank you.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No problem. So yeah, as I mentioned, we looked at our water rights. We look pretty good there. I mentioned we look at our production capacity. Things are looking good there. The other thing we look at is our distribution capacity. How's the system look? We use a water model. We just updated it this last year to be able to insert a project if it comes in. That doesn't necessarily play into our recommendation to this commission, but it's as we get to projects that come to the planning commission, we're looking at pretty much every one that has a water demand. Can we serve it at a project level, and what improvements would be needed? As we grow towards the outskirts of town, things like that, it becomes harder to say, oh yeah, it's real easy, just connect to the system, extend it past your property and everything is great. It tends to, there's a reason some of these properties have sat vacant for a long time. There's infrastructure needs that go with it that aren't easy, unfortunately, but we try to work with the developers at every turn to how do we find a way to get that constructed and make it work. And it depends too on the project. We can have two similar projects, and their water demands may seem the same, but one has a high fire flow requirement that one can just require so much more demand that it's hard for them to make that pencil for a developer, so. On to wastewater, the fun stuff, I guess. Yeah. We have a system, it's about 320 miles of collection system pipeline out in the city. We use 5 sewage lift stations. Everything pretty much flows gravity until it gets down in a lower area of town, and we have to pump it up. We have 1 treatment facility in Carson City, the WRF, or the Water Resource Recovery Facility. That's where all the water goes to get treated and then pumped out to our reusers. We have about 24 miles of reuse system pipeline. To get that water in the winter, we store it in a reservoir up in Brunswick Canyon. And then all summer long, the water that we're producing at the plant plus water from that reservoir flows to our 4 reuse sites. That's the 3 area golf courses and the prison farm. So it's pretty balanced. We look at our capacity of the wastewater plant and what we're currently treating. We look at that disposal capability, also impacts our ability to serve long-term. And then finally the collection system. So in terms of things that can impact that, every year we see, and I think this next shows it better, we see variation in our annual average flow. That's in million gallons per day in that lower graph. And you can really see it in the numbers there in the top chart. We tend to be in the high 4 to low 5 million. Really wet spring, we were 5.63, so almost a million gallon per day jump from one year to the next. And that shows up too in our peak day. Every year, we'll have a rainstorm or two. We get a little bit of infiltration around the manhole lids. The stormwater system is separate, but we get that, I said, that little bit of infiltration. Some groundwater seeps in at joints, things like that. So we will see a temporary increase. In 2023, we saw a solid 2 months of increased flows that we dealt with, and then our peak days were almost 10 million gallons per day in March that year. So
if you follow that trend line, it looks like you've got about another 4 years.
Yep, potentially. And it is a state requirement under our permit when we hit 85% of our capacity is 6.9 million gallons per day. So when we hit that 85% number, or 5.85 average million gallons per day, we're required to do facility planning to be ready for where are we going next. After the wet year we had in 2023, we decided, let's go ahead and start that. There was also some pressure from NDEP that, hey, in the future, your permit, we're going to tighten regulations, things like that. So we said, let's go ahead and kind of start planning for that now.
Yeah.
So
So we're also, I think, at one time, where you were looking, I think when we get to the 5.8 threshold, the effluent that we're using, we can't use in our parks.
We can, it's not currently plumbed at those park sites. The piping is there. We did it until about 2013. With that reduction of water usage by the metering, one of the unintended consequences between that and we were doing a lot of pipe rehab on our sewer system, sealed a lot of those joints up. We were getting less groundwater.
Yeah.
So kind of both of those combined, we saw less flow to the treatment plant, which meant less effluent to give to our customers. And so the decision was made then to take the parks back off. That is kind of our first step if our water balance starts showing that we need to look at increasing our reuse. That would be one of our first steps.
Commissioner Peterson?
Andy had a question for you. So
Yeah.
that this goes back a graph or two, but that 7% loss. So Can that number be adjusted? I mean, how long has that been 7%?
It bounces every year.
Up,
It's-
down a lot, or
Yeah.
big swings, low swings?
It's probably 3 to 4%.
Hmm.
Yeah, of a swing up or down.
Was that 7%? Was that a high one?
No, that was kind of that was more on the lower side, but that's looking back 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
of
What is,
average, yeah.
like, where is that water going? Like, is that bad joints? Is it holes in the pipe? Is it on the customer end having leaks, and then you guys, call that a loss?
Yeah, if it goes through the meter, even if we end up crediting that because it was a leak for some reason that we caused,
Right.
we still count that. So that is water that would have a pipeline break. We're out there digging it up and fixing it. There are leaks at joints that we may never see for 5, 10 years until they finally get bad enough that they show up. Our flushing program would also fall into that.
True.
Yeah, because we don't meter that water.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Preston?
Hi, Andy.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to thank you for updating us on the Marlette Dam repair, because I knew that that was going to be a big loss for us, and
Yeah.
it does have to recharge. I had another question in regards to, it's more of like kind of a statement thing. On your 5 lift stations that you have, I know that when we were doing the processing plant, one of the conditions of the processing plant was that they upgrade with one of the lift stations. So this is something that you are looking at when we have developments as making it a condition of use. So I wanted to put that out there.
Yep.
Is that the developers are in fact paying for something if they're going to be bringing something in.
Yep.
The other question is, and I think that you were kind of answering it, it just has to do with how we're using it as to whether or not we're going to have additional affluent available for the other parks, because I was aware we were using it, prior to about 2013.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you so
Yeah,
much.
absolutely. And really on that effluent too, the reservoir that we store that water in, Brunswick, it is an earthen reservoir. It's not lined. We lose a certain amount of water every year, just leaks into the ground, just soaks in. It does show up in springs around the reservoir. That water, some of that water goes to the Carson River. We permit that to allow that use. We're working through permit renewal right now on that. As with anything, as new permits come out, they like to tighten things, but that's something that we're definitely watching. If that could change our water balance if we had to say line that reservoir. Not only would it be $20+ million probably, but now we have roughly 1,000 acre feet or more of water a year to get rid of because it's not recharging. So things like that we definitely long-term watch, and with our last update of the reuse master plan, we took stuff like that into account, and it's more of a, if this happened, what's some of our options to deal with it, so that we kind of have some guidance when we get there. Yeah. In terms of how we keep things moving, our capital projects and planning, as I mentioned, our Quill Water Treatment Plant, that's our big one that's happening right now. We're also doing a master plan update for our wastewater plant. We recently, in the last year, updated our water model. And then our water conservation plan, we updated that. One that actually Greg helped me with some was our lead and copper database. That was a federal requirement due to what happened in Flint, Michigan, where we are required to identify essentially every water service that we have and what that material of that service could be. So that database is live on our website, and we continue to, as we replace a meter, things like that, dig them up, verify that, yep, what we thought that was is true. We rehabbed our well number 5, the upper right-hand picture there, this last year. Our one of our current projects on Menlo Drive. We're replacing water and sewer in that street. That's picture in the upper left is what's left of the top of the sewer line there is completely gone. One of our fixes we had to go in there and do, but had to go in and clean that up and patch it temporarily. I think that was like about a month before the contractor was actually scheduled to get in there and start right after we had bid it. And yeah, so it was definitely needed. We did a cured in place pipe project on Lampa Lane. That's wrapping up in the next few weeks to do some sewer rehab there. At our wastewater treatment plant, as you can imagine, dealing with wastewater, it wears things out fairly quickly, pumps and stuff like that. It just is hard on concrete and stuff. The kind of middle picture on the right, that's the second story floor of our dewatering building, where the concrete on the surface had just kind of spalled and degraded. We had to remove about 1.5 inches of that top layer and replace it with epoxy. The bottom picture there, that's how we get water into the treatment plant, is what's called a screw pump. That pump is about 4 feet in diameter and just rotates and just lifts the water up, but it's capable of handling grit and anything that might be in that wastewater. They really don't plug or clog, so they're super reliable, but wears the paint out on them and things like that, and you have to recoat them before they turns into wearing the metal out. We're getting ready to build a warehouse building for the various pieces of equipment we have for the wastewater maintenance side over at the wharf this coming year, and then also reloading our tank rehab program. We had to skip a tank this last year with the Quill project, and then also just basically our prices doubled from what they were 2 years ago. So we had to reload that fund and gonna take it back out to bid again for this fall. And then in regards to our wells, as I mentioned, it's constant balancing of water quality and things like that. As Quill wraps up, we're gonna jump back into that program to kind of take a look at some new technologies, other ways to maximize the clean water that we can get out of a well and blank off areas that are bad. And I actually identify the areas of that well where that water is coming in that we don't want and try to block it. So we're hopeful that's looking really promising from other communities that have tried it. So we're gonna do some investigation this coming year. And then that's kind of the conclusion of what I had. We really try to look at it as from when it enters our drinking water system to when we're done with it and reusing it on a golf course. It's really all the same water in Carson. They are both complex and dynamic systems, take a lot to manage, and just depending on the pressures on those systems can impact long-term our ability to serve, but I think we're in a good place. And, as long as we continue to maintain our water portfolio and keep planning and improving our capabilities and, both production and transmission, we should be in a good spot.
Okay. Commissioner Peterson?
So Andy, is there infrastructure coming off of East Fifth at the treatment plant to get that treated water to parks? I mean, you got a parallel domestic and then that treated water line, right?
Yeah, so what we have lines in place to get it over to like Mills Park, to the cemetery. We had it down to the ball fields at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that is just coming off of the line that serves the prison, for example, or other areas, but that was largely those sites that were already being served. We had to disconnect them, remove the metering, flange that off to prove that connection was not possible without some major work, to prove that there wasn't a cross connection potential.
Yeah. So you're like looking at bigger plots of parks than not say like Sonoma Park, the dog parks, things like that, right?
Yeah, it would be what's kind of the bang for the buck. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Commissioner
Thank you.
DeChristopher?
I know there's several factors involved, but based on population increases, do you have a sense of when we would have to add a second waste treatment facility? Like at what point?
Yeah, I don't know that we would need a second. We have a lot of land there, and it is located in a pretty good location to be able to get the water there. But we are thinking probably in that, 5 to 10 years timeframe, we will be needing to add capacity to that facility.
Okay.
Whether it's, additional treatment basins or whatever, that's kind of what we're determining with our facility plan that's happening now.
Okay, thank you. And I
Yeah.
just wanted to say this presentation was really helpful.
Good.
Find it very interesting, but you answered the majority of questions just
Good.
going through this. Very educational. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy, I got one last
Yeah.
one for you. You may not be the right guy,
I'll try.
but Hope, when we were doing our master plan and we have this new urban boundary, and I don't know if you've seen the new maps or not. but
Yeah.
If you expand them out, there's all these little spots of red inside what I would call the Carson City Metroplex that are apparently not serviced.
Mhm.
What are we doing anything about servicing them, or are we just, I know we can.
Yeah, some of those areas, yes. Like, for instance, down in the southeastern area of town where there's still a large amount on septics, we are building infrastructure. We just finished a project in there to start converting some of those. Some of the areas, without a developer-driven project to really bring the bulk of that infrastructure in, I don't know if it'll ever make sense, or if there's a state mandate for some reason to bring either water or sewer there, depending on what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just,
Actually, I was just going to add, in getting ready for growth management, I actually got confused. I confused myself. And I started thinking about the growth boundary or urban service boundary. And then I was like, no. We look at the urban service boundary when we do the annual master plan report. And so I had actually written up stuff in my staff report for growth management, and then I pulled it out. So what will need to happen for the master plan annual report, which will be coming in less than a year, is I'll sit with Darren and Andy and whoever else we have to sit with and say, does this boundary make sense? Is it too big? Is it in the right place? Are, some of these holes in the donut, so to speak, are those holes still there? Are you serving them now? And so we will revisit that as part of the master plan. I think we have to really look critically at it, and not just those areas, but did the boundary make sense? At the time we were doing it with the consultants, yeah, it made sense, but maybe with a year under our belt, and Andy knows what's going on with wastewater. I mean, he's just spoken to it, and some of the challenges he's having with the system or not having with the system, whatever it is, to just sit down and really look strongly and critically at that boundary and make sure that those land use designations are syncing up properly based on the ability of the water and wastewater purveyor to serve them.
well, that's kind of my point. The fear is if all of a sudden we take these little pieces and they plug them all in, we're gonna be to 5.8 million gallons.
Yep.
And we may not want to be there yet.
Right, and I think the urban service boundary is a really good tool to help us really look at that and then make sure the master plan designations are following suit. And we're looking at low-intensity uses where it is difficult or challenging to serve, and we're focused on infill where it's a little bit easier.
Are we fluoridating our water?
No.
Okay.
And Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a specific NAC requirement that if your septic fails and you're within X number of feet, you're required to connect to a sewer system. So eventually, some of these systems are going to have to jump online.
Yeah, and that applies even in an area where water has been built and they're still on a well. If it fails, yeah, they're required.
Anything else? Andy, as always, thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
How about the fire chief? He's here? He's as busy as the sheriff. We can let the sheriff go. I apologize. The sheriff pays me.
Good evening, Sean Slayman, Fire Chief for the record. And for the record, I do not report to the sheriff. He is not my boss. Just want to clarify that for, although he thinks he is, he gives me a hard time.
Can you give us a little status on where we are with our new fire station and what's happening and how we're all going to be reorganized?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So Fire Station 55, which is on Boot Eye Lane, right at Fairview. We don't have an official opening date yet, but it will be late July. Interior work is underway now, and we anticipate it'll be completed maybe the second week or so, and we'll be able to start the move-in process and go fully operational by early August. Staffing is already on board and ready to be reallocated for that. So the organizational part of that is ready to go. And then the Board of Supervisors approved an additional 40-hour ambulance, which will actually be single-role, non-firefighter based. Most of our ambulances are fire-based paramedics. And that will allow us to cover some peak hour call volume and reduce the impact that we've been experiencing over growth and on our firefighter base.
And if that ambulance needs 3 strong men, then are you just going to call them out?
If that ambulance needs additional resources,
Yeah.
additional personnel, men and women, yes, they will call
I'm
them out to
sorry,
assist.
men or
Nope,
women, I
just-
apologize.
Absolutely. No, and that's a great question because through our dispatch center, they triage the calls, so meaning they will ask you a lot of questions. And depending on the level of acuity or the level of severity potential, they will dispatch a fire engine or a ladder truck with an ambulance to that call. So a cardiac, a traumatic event, stroke indications, difficulty breathing, that is why you often see a fire engine going with an ambulance. Other times you will see just an ambulance responding to a call, and that is a lower level call that doesn't need additional resources.
Wonderful, thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for the fire chief?
Well, thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
sir.
Appreciate it.
All right. We save the best for last? Parks? Yeah. Tell us all good things Parky.
Thank you, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. Well, I keep telling everyone we're the fun department. We try to have a good time and get a lot done. Well, as far as the growth management perspective, I mean, we're doing really well. We don't want to stop any growth and opportunities for residential development. We do benefit from residential construction tax with parks, which is great. Doesn't generate a lot of revenue, but it does help us. We do have a residential construction tax project that was approved as part of the FY26 budget, so we'll be redoing the playground and doing some improvements at Sunset Park, all courtesy of residential construction tax. So it does have local benefits, which is great. Wish we could use it for maintenance and other tasks, but we'll take what we can get. But the department's doing really well. We manage over 8,000 acres. We have 50 full-time staff. We have about 200 seasonals, depending on the time of year. Our programs are filling up with waiting lists. Everything that we do this year, our summer camp and swim lessons filled up in 17 minutes. So we have a good problem that our programs and activities are going really well. I wish we had more resources to provide more to meet the need.
Well, if
We're doing pretty
if you
great.
take Hope's new chart that I had her make and you add up it's almost 28% of what I would call parks and open space in our town. And if you add in the CR, it's over half. So while we may seem like we're building too much, there's really a lot of open space left.
Carson
I think we
City's,
should all be happy with that.
yeah, we're so lucky because the hillsides around Carson are all protected. Whether it's BLM, Forest Service, or Carson City, your view shed is protected. Reno and Sparks are not so lucky. So we're very lucky to have the Quality of Life initiative to preserve those lands and to be able to provide some funding to help care for them as well.
Commissioner DeChristopher?
I did notice in what you submitted, you mentioned that you too see, you and your staff hear often about the need for another athletic complex or addition to the existing ones. I'm just curious, and this is more looking at it in the scope of the master plan update, if you could elaborate on more specifics of what you're hearing, like in terms of location, what would be prioritized?
Actually, my recommendation would to not be adding parks to our park system. We are already really taxed with what we have right now. My focus would be on building out existing parks consistent with our master plan. So Fuji Park would not have ball fields, but we have a park master plan for that. But Pete Livermore Sports Complex has room for additional fields. We have a shortage of fields is really what it is. Right now, we're in the process of updating the master plan for Centennial Park, and adding additional fields in the lower part of Centennial could help accommodate the need. So I don't think we need to acquire additional lands or build new locations, but build out our existing parks, and then continue to reinvest in our aging park infrastructure to make that, more maintenance friendly and more usable to meet the park needs.
Commissioner Preston?
Preston.
Said Commissioner
I thought you
Preston.
said Mr. Preston. I'm going, geez, what's going on?
Commissioner Preston.
Okay.
I got
that
new
is-
teeth the other day.
Oh, okay. What the heck? First of all, Jennifer, I would like to thank you and put it on the record for last year on the improvements that have been made on the condition of Ormsby Boulevard and down College Parkway. And you already said that you are aware of the trees.
Yes.
So I think
We're
we're good
on it.
on that. One of the things I really wanted to point out is that when we were doing our listening tour, a lot of people loved our parks, but they absolutely loved the trails.
Mhm.
And so that's one thing that I think that Carson City, because of their ability to do the Q18 and get the open space and put in those trails, and now we have a trail to Canada, I mean, for Pete's sake. My other question is that we've been hearing a lot of people wanting to have a mountain bike park. Is that something that is going to be, going towards that, since we do have such a biking community?
Thank you. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. The number one thing that I get asked about are, where are the trails? Where's the map? Where can I find them? I want to go experience new trails. And that depends on, what kind of use you're looking for. We have so much to offer. We have more than 100 miles of trail in Carson City, so we're very lucky. There's been a lot of public interest to do a bike park. We're considering that for the Centennial Park Master Plan. We have land and the opportunity to be able to incorporate that into that master plan. Right now, we're working through the field design for conversion to synthetic fields, and then addressing the drainage issues at Centennial Park, which are significant. Drainage improvements at Centennial Park really needs to be the top priority, and then we're looking at trying to design that bike park around the drainage improvements. So we are incorporating that. We've heard the need for that. We're really lucky. Carson High School has a mountain bike team. We want to help encourage that activity, and then using our trail system as well.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you all. Did I miss somebody?
And I want to thank them as well, because
Yes.
I know they just gave up their evenings to be here, but this is for the growth management, this is the big meeting. And what you learn here comes up all year long.
Well,
So
and
I want-
that's why I'd like for them to know the benefit of, sometimes we ask the minutia questions, but it helps us
Mhm.
so much
Mhm.
when we're sitting here at the last Wednesday of the month getting beat up on. It's nice to know some of these answers, or at least how we can get to some of these answers. So,
Yeah, I totally agree. So thank you to all my colleagues who came out tonight. Do
Mr.
you want
Preston.
them to stay, or are you ready for them? Can they leave? Okay, after Commissioner Preston, let them know if they have to stay.
I'm going to do it quick, guys. No, I just wanted to get in AJ's letter and his report, because we hear so much about schools and that we need schools, and that's not what we've been hearing from AJ.
Okay, Thank you. Yes, everybody's excused. Thank you all again. Now the fun stuff.
Now you get to decide. So if you look at page, let me see what page. Page 11 will give you your options on the rates. And again, I'm suggesting the 43.57% split.
Well, and you know how I feel about this whole thing.
Go for it.
We have a diminishing amount of land and we keep adding more and more. And somewhere along the way, those two are going to crash. And while we've done 3% since 2006. And in essence, that chart doesn't tell me anything. It's just a chart. So it's a number is a number. And I think we ought to try and find a way to make the numbers more meaningful. If we want to reserve 57% for the first 90 days, we never do that. So why are we reserving? What are we afraid of? Number one, of some developer coming in here afterwards or not before and saying, you know what, where's my consideration? I don't think we need to do that. I think we need to set a number. But I don't personally feel the need to separate those out for the first 90 days of the fiscal year. I just think it's an exercise that just makes a chart, and I can't justify it in my mind. And the other thing is the annual growth. Last year was 720. We're proposing 774. And if you look at the actual building chart, the actual permits, we have been close in the last 16 years, except for 2 times when we approved major apartment complexes all at the one time. They could have very well done that over 2 years, and it wouldn't have made a diddly's worth of difference. So I just, I guess I just don't like the methodology we're using, and because I think it's so artificial, and I would rather try and figure out. And I don't have an answer. I've tried to figure it out. I don't have an answer. Nobody likes my idea anyway. So, but Commissioner DeChristopher, okay. No, I'm just saying that I think an artificial. I had proposed last year that we look at the difference between our expected build-out growth and the number of residents we have, and how much of that can be residents, and you divide that out over the 25 years that we've got to go, and we'll get there in 25 years if we only allow 450 to 500 units a year. Chuggity, 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 chuggity. But that could be readjusted based on what's left, not some artificial number about 3% of the population. I know. So I would just prefer a better method. I don't have a proposal for the board, but I just think 700 permits next year is too many, based on history, if nothing else. You know, if you look at this chart we've got in front of us, you know, if you drew a line through all those, it's somewhere around 350, 400.
So, accepting your concern with the methodology.
Yes.
I think you've got a point there. What is the fear? Fear may be the wrong word. What is the concern with having the larger number, that we're going to suddenly we wake up, the economy's supercharged and we spike to it and we're not ready for it? Or is it a concern just that the methodology is so arbitrary?
I think the concern is the methodology is so arbitrary. Okay. You know, if we could develop a methodology that said the number ought to be 730, I don't care what it is, that ought to be the number. But this methodology just takes a percentage, and it's never been based in fact. Since 2006, we've been doing 3% growth. and we're not doing 3% growth.
I suppose if we didn't want to launch into fixing the methodology, but we wanted to drive the number down towards something that was more reasonable, we could take the low end of the estimates.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm saying that, I would say 2.5. If we wanted to start something, go to 2.5. And
Could we, well, Hope, this is a question for you, I suppose. Is it within the purview of this body to change the methodology, or is that locked into statute?
The methodology is not locked into statute. By way of background for the folks who
Lee
this
Plumel.
is right, there's that. For those of you who this is your first growth management meeting, what I put in the report but I didn't speak to was this all came about because the state in the city had an issue, because the state felt like the city was allowing development and didn't have the resources to support it, specifically water. And so the city created this growth management ordinance. So every single solitary year we stop and we look at our critical services, and that's fire, police, fire, sheriff, utilities, stormwater, transportation, parks and rec, and schools. That's why the group who was here today was the group. That's why those letters were here. Those are specifically called out in the code. And the Growth Management Commission is responsible for receiving their reports, understanding the report, and based on those reports and their representation of what type of growth can be accommodated without compromising those critical services, you make a recommendation to the board. Now, as the chair said, since 2006, it's actually a bit of a convoluted formula. And it's interesting because actually, my recommendation of 774 this year is less than the recommendation from last year, because you use the actual growth in the formula, and the formula is attached to the staff report. So is it the right formula? I'm not going to say it is or it's not. It's a formula, and it's what everyone's been responding to for, 18 years.
If I can ask, where was the origin?
I think Lee Plumel, my predecessor.
Chuck, if I can address you directly, I think I'm probably the least regulation-loving, most pro-growth guy on the commission. And for what it's worth, I agree with you that if we're going to go through this exercise, it should probably be tied to something else. I know we can't make that decision right now, but I support where we're at.
Well, it's a number that's supposed to be helping us plan, and I don't think it helps us do that. Ellen? Ellen?
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say, you are 7 for 7 tonight. Don't blow it. I'm still Ellen DeChristopher, and it's 6:43. The night's not over. This actually is for Hope. When I originally, my first growth management meeting, I was like, yeah, why don't we talk to 2.5? For many of the same reasons that the chair has presented. But you brought up a valid point. And that is, we use it for planning purposes, but it is also used by other entities within the city, tourism, people, when we try to attract employers to this area, being able to say you have 3% growth, that you will accept 3% growth, has some weight to it. When they see communities, and I can speak to when Harley-Davidson Credit initially came out here, if they would have heard 1.5 to 2%, that would have been an issue for them because of needing employees. That was their whole purpose of setting up here, is they wanted homegrown employees, local. So just a consideration.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm going to suggest that this annual review of critical services and vis-a-vis looking at growth in the next 4 years, I'm not going to equate that to planning. What I'm going to equate it to is it's more short-term. You're not the Planning Commission right now. You're the Growth Management Commission. So what you're doing is you're saying, how much growth can we accommodate without compromising these critical services? And you just received reports from, the people responsible for managing these critical services who have said, we can accommodate 3% growth if based on this methodology, if that's what the Growth Management Commission thinks. So I don't want you to look at this as a planning document, because I don't think it is a planning document. The other piece of it is, I want to just reiterate what Commissioner DeChristopher said. I've had many conversations, and Supervisor Schutte, I think it's okay if I reference, she and I have had this conversation over the years. She's struggled with the numbers as well in the methodology and said, well, why does it have to be this number? Why can't it be a smaller number? It can't be a smaller number, 100%. We're not getting up to the high numbers, but it sends a message when you go for a smaller number. If for 18 years we've been at 3% and all of a sudden we go to 2.5% or 2%, what message are we sending and why? And so if we can accommodate 3%, and that's not to say I didn't hear what the chair said, because I hear it. I don't love this methodology. I'm not a fan of it. But I am a fan of staying the course if we can without compromising services, because I think of the message it sends.
Well, I'll try one more time. It's just, if, for example, we took the 774 that's recommended this year and we redid, if I take that on as a lifelong project for the next year, to redo that methodology, and the next year it came in, and I don't use a percentage, but we use something different, and it comes in at 10 less, but it changes the trend, I would be happy with that. But I understand what you're saying about economic development and how people hear that number. But it just seems to me so artificial. And I understand if we say, okay, let's go from 775 to 500, what does that say? You know, and to Commissioner Brooks's point, that's kind of no growth. And I understand that. I don't want to do that. But I just wrestle with, you know, what does it do for us? And I'm amenable to whatever the commission wants to do. I'm fine. I'm not going to say no.
And what we can certainly do, if the commission wants, is we could stay the course for this meeting, make the recommendation to the board, but then have another Growth Management Commission meeting where, because we know that the utilities are assuming a build out of 80,000, and approach it the way you're suggesting. If build out's 80,000 and we're at 61,000 today, and we assume build out will be over 25 years, or we want it to be 25 years, let's do the math and see what that looks like, because that's what I keep hearing you say.
Yep.
And we can certainly have a meeting where that is the discussion. The methodology is a discussion item.
And I just want to pipe in real quick. You know, Carson City really, with these regulations, is the only entity I know in the state of Nevada for local jurisdictions that actually does this. Douglas County has a limit on the number of building permits you can issue in the Tahoe Basin, but that's the only other regulation that I know that even looks at this type of information. Otherwise, it's on a case-by-case basis, and it's not done annually. So back in the 70s, when the NDEP and Carson City had that conflict, Carson City came up with a proposal. And I think, I agree, I don't know that 3% consistently is what we should try for or what we should agree to, but at the same time, I don't know that tonight we should try and come up with some sort of alternative.
I don't think we can do it tonight.
And
I'm just venting my
yeah,
frustration.
and I agree. You know, there should be some sort of rational nexus, some sort of connection as to the decision we're making. But on the other hand, Hope's right. I mean, all the necessary service providers are saying, we can handle 3% based on what we know today, and based on our planning and based on our current infrastructure and our planned infrastructure. So I don't disagree with you, but I mean, kudos to the previous people who sat in our chairs and the elected officials who came up with this and have been dealing with this, because it's a rare feat. Not many jurisdictions do this.
Mr. Preston? Commissioner Preston?
Okay. All right, I'm going to put another hat on here as being somebody that in 1975 sat in a motorhome and waited for a lottery for building permits to find out whether or not our company and our employees were going to be working for the next year. I looked at this because you look at the projections, or should we go ahead and pack up our tent and leave? So I think that's very important to see this. I look at it and I knew that this planning was not happening back in the 70s. I look at these charts as far as what's going on here, and being in my position, I know that here we were down here, interest rates were great, but we didn't have water. So until the water was there, until the wastewater plant was there, that's not really indicative of how many permits could actually be pulled. Then we go into the area of 2009, 2010, everybody's flat. Then we have zero interest rates. We have things like the Palisade Fire, the Paradise Fire. We have people that are coming over here like absolute crazy. We're getting things like the thing that came up yesterday on Facebook. It says, oh, do you realize Carson City is one of the top 10 places in the country for retirement? So we've got this coming on. But now what we've had is people realized we needed multifamily. Lenders were willing to go ahead and put money towards multifamily when they had not previously. Our demographics showed that that was something that was needed. The majority of residential we have on here is the multifamily, and they have waiting lists. And I think that's really important. People say, oh, why we have all these apartments? I mean, I looked at the old motel that's been turned over to apartments last night. I drove by there, the one on Carson Street. That used to be the old Travel Lodge, but anyway, it's right across. It's on Carson Street. Every one of those units was full. The parking lot was absolutely full, and I'm going, okay. Obviously, there is a need. No matter all these people wanting to have the biggest lot. Period. I look at that and say, okay, those are primarily multifamily that we did on here, but now we have interest rates. Lenders aren't lending. And so we're going to flatten out again until something comes up. We have tariffs. Our building costs are going to come down. So I look at this and say, economically, this is great, saying that we are proponents of being able, we know we can handle the growth, but at the same point, a lot of these economic factors are not showing up on here. So, I mean, that's how I look at it. I don't think it's the best. But I think at this point, too, is it says that we have this, we're analyzing it, where other communities truly do not. So.
Thanks. One last comment. I wanted to go back to something I had said about employers, using Harley Credit as an example. I realize that sometimes when people talk about new business coming in, their assumption is that that's going to be people in Carson that have been in Carson that are going to support it. What I'm hoping the 3% also communicates is getting businesses in here, because we've made a real push for someone to be the economic development lead here, that we actually see something come about because of it, and people who have been finding Minden or Lyon County, Douglas County, Washoe County a better option for them in coming in, that we get both. So I think right now, given we're putting that push, it's probably the best way to go until we come up with a better formula. And I do agree with Commissioner Peterson that there's a lot of variables that go into it. And I think that's where I'm going to have to be convinced there's a better way to go, because those variables are actually getting greater, not less.
Commissioner Peterson.
So I think we have a city, a town of opportunity. I mean, we're unique. We're not Reno, and we're bigger than Gardnerville, you know, and we have this committee. We have this group of commissioners that we can make these decisions, and it's a great thing. I mean, we can adjust. We can do this from year to year. We can feel the pulse, what happens economy-wise, materials for building, who's coming into our town. Is it seniors? Is it young couples with kids because they're trying to flee the metropolis? We're like 1 of 10 cities in the country, I guess. We're a target. So if we can, we have the ability to make things happen. And so but we have to go about it like Chair Chuck said. We need to figure out another method, something that that's not gonna happen tonight, but we have the ability to do it with the information that we had, especially from all of the services tonight. There's room. We can do this. It's not an impossibility.
Okay, what about the 43.57%? That's oh, I know you're easy. It also doesn't do anything for me either.
Right, the only positive of it is if the number of permits available got lower and there was a risk of not having enough permits, if you got a big apartment complex that came in with Carson Hills, 360 units, that eats a big chunk of those permits and doesn't leave a whole lot for other people. So this makes sure that if you have an individual builder who just wants to build their house, a big mass builder, I'll say apartment complex, because we're not going to see single family come in for that many units, doesn't grab all of the units. It allows for more opportunity for more people. And so I think that's a positive. I don't think, just like the 3% hasn't stopped development, the proportionality between the developer and the general category also hasn't been an obstacle to development, which is a reason not to have it. I understand that. But since it's not an obstacle, if it's not broken.
Commissioner Brooks?
In that situation that you just talked about with you're starting to get close to the edge, you get a big apartment coming in, can the city administratively do anything, or would it have to go back to Growth Management Commission? Or even the Board of Supervisors?
Okay, so the chart I just put up is probably a good illustration. So the white is the general, and the black line is the developer category. And so what you can see is it was like 2017, that was Carson Hills Apartments. So the number of allocations allowed, we're not even getting close when you look at that.
It's only for the first 90 days.
It is, and then you put it over.
Then
So, no, from a staff level, if we threw it all in a single bucket, and let's say we had 500 units allowed, okay? And in January, February, 2 big apartment complexes come in and take 500 permits. They're gone. But if I have this in place, it just gives the people who might be the individual builders, they have to come in there in that first quarter. That's the only time their units are protected. But in that first quarter, we divide it out, so no developer doing more than 31 units can grab all the units.
Okay. Commissioner Brooks, you done? Okay. What's your pleasure? I've been beat up again. All right. All right. There being no further discussion, then can I have a motion, please? All right, there you go. Turn your mic on, please.
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval of the draft resolution.
seconded by Commissioner Preston. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you for indulging me. I would now like, public comment. There's two of them coming. There's going to be two of them. No, you can. There's public comment now for the Growth Management Commission.
Okay. Thank you very much. This has been very informative. I did appreciate being accommodated by Sheriff Furlong. There was a statement in the agenda that suggested he was going to be bringing two people on in the I'm sorry, I forget which unit, but it's for the mental health response, the most. Okay, thank you. That was good contribution from, okay, so that had nothing to do with future growth. It's at where we're at right now, that would accommodate their use of specialists in those situations, and I appreciated that. I didn't get a chance to ask, he's not here, Andy Hummel, about the suit. I've been writing it down this whole time. He had several pieces of major equipment, the screw pump and the centrifuge that we had talked about earlier, he and I, on other occasions when they were getting the flooring done and the new centrifuge in, or the rebuilt one. He was mentioning at that time they would need a new centrifuge because they were going to change the type. It was going to be smaller, but it was going to be more efficient. And so the old one, I said, well, why not just buy a new one? But at that time, funding and all was to repair the old one and such. So my thing is being accommodated here. Would be nice to be able to ask them while they're here, but that it's not allowed is frustrating. And I also, with the idea of percentages, I'm going with 3 or 2 or such. I'm sort of with Chair Border on the fact that that doesn't represent so much. But if you said the 2.5% meant 700 and something dwellings, but sort of put them together and married them somehow comfortably. But my main concerns have been relieved here with the considerations about the water. I did want to ask Andy Hummel about the plastic microplastics, because when he originally had mentioned that it's on the list of tests now, but he has no scale to go to use. So whatever he gets, he has nothing to measure it. There's no set amount yet as the proper amount for our drinking water. So he has nothing to gauge his findings towards, or say, hey, we're too high, or we can't measure it because we don't have a strict measurement. So those type of things would have been nice to be able to ask while he was here and not have to hold him up. But the sheriff and I, we had a nice conversation about it, and he was very commendable about it and helped me. So, but I think right now our biggest thing is our budget. We've got stuff to do if we want to be prepared for the future, and you're not here to do that. You're deciding whether or not we have certain abilities by people power right now. We have staff we need to pay for and stuff, and do we have the money for it? I don't think development's paying for those employees right now, and I would like to see that different. So, thank you.
Okay, is there any other further public comment? Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn the Growth Management Commission meeting? Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, ladies. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The Growth Management Commission is adjourned, and we're going to reconvene as the Planning Commission at 7:03 to do item number 7A.
Okay, so first I'll give the Community Development Monthly Report that Mackenzie Ray does. I always give Mackenzie a shout out, and she watches your meetings from home, so she knows. Yeah, you can wave to her. Okay, in terms of the building department, obviously we had a big January, and then we dropped a little bit, but we went up in May from April. So valuation as of May 27th was close to $17 million in valuation building permits. Total valuation in calendar year 25 through May 27th was $120 million. We had 18 housing starts so far in May, and that was as of May 27th, and 322 total housing starts in 2025, which I believe is greater than our total housing starts in 2024. In terms of new commercial construction, the airport is finally building their snow removal equipment building. So you know what you did tonight, so I won't go through this. The Historic Resource Commission had 4 items: the Ferris Mansion landscaping. They looked at installing solar panels at 500 Mountain Street. At 106 South Curry, they looked at converting a porch to an open covered porch. And on West Robinson, they looked at replacing a driveway with pavers and concrete. In terms of business license, 54 business licenses were issued, including Carl's Jr., which is opened at 1250 South Carson, and Captain Calabash, which is a mobile bar catering. Liquor licenses, 2 were issued, Captain Calabash and Lakeshore Premium Wines and Spirits, and that meeting was on May 6th. And for code enforcement, 91 cases were opened, 102 cases were closed. We had 92 parking tickets issued and 1 RV towed. Upcoming events, tonight we're here at the Growth Management and Planning Commission meeting. The board will meet on June 5th, and then we have Planning Commission again on June 25th. Special events coming up, because special event permitting is through community development. The State Fair is June 5th. Crystal's Crusade, this says June 6th. I think that's actually on June 5th, so whatever that Friday is. June 21st starts the Levitt Amp concert series at Brewery Arts. June 21st is Taste of Downtown. June 25th is the Black Top Buffet at Brewery Arts. And June 27th is the Sheriff's Office motorcycle event.
And this Saturday is Brewfest.
Yes, this Saturday is Brewfest. What's the chamber doing? Oh, yeah, at the Mills Park, right. Yes, well, no, you pay for the concert. Oh, you, okay. Gotcha. In terms of upcoming agenda items for next month, June, we're going to have a special use permit for Hoot and Tire, who wants some storage containers, a 6-foot fence, and living quarters. It's for Hoot and Tires over on North Carson. And then you'll have some right-of-way abandonments on Lampa Lane, 900 Mountain Street. They're looking at an ADU or accessory dwelling unit. And over on Gonai, we'll be doing the 5-year review of the Cinder Light special use permit. And that is all I have.
When are we gonna get a copy of Title 18?
Good question. Actually, I think there's progress being made. And I actually have been back and forth with the clerk on that. And the clerk and the city manager's office is having a call, I think tomorrow, with MuniCode, who's the group who basically codifies it for us. And so that there's been a lot of delays. The clerk's office seems to get a different answer from MuniCode every single time they check. So there is this call, so hopefully that will be productive. I'm not available to be on that call. Also, in terms of the master plan, I haven't green-lighted the reproduction of that yet because I still want to go through one more time and look at those photos and make sure the photos are Carson City. And so otherwise, they have incorporated all of the board's changes, but I know in just glancing, I did see a photo that was not Carson City. So I just need to carve out time and go through every single solitary photo.
Is the map online?
No, because we're going to do that once I green light the document. But
Okay.
GIS is ready for it and everything was formatted to allow it to transfer over. And then in August, we have to have a hearing at the Planning Commission for anyone who wants to revisit what the land use designation was. And so far, I've only had one person ask me for a meeting on that.
Okay.
And because the maps were of great concern to those who showed up at the last meeting, how are we notifying people when they're up? For example, if they're on the Envision website, will we push an email to them saying updated maps available?
What I can do is once everything's been moved to the city's GIS system, I can do a press release, and I'll do that as part of sort of we have to do another listening session too. And so I'll do a press release about the listening session for anybody who wants to talk about their map designation and tell them how to look at the GIS to look at their land.
Anything? Go ahead.
You were saying June is kind of a month off, well, not for you and your team, because you'll be working on all of this, but we should anticipate that in July, we'll be doing workshops on Title 18? No? August?
Remind me, oh, I see what you're saying, okay. Yeah, I need a minute. Let me get through June, because we have some other things. I want to get the master plan done. Like, I have to get those photos done before my brain can start working on Title 18. So maybe July, maybe August, because I want to get through the master plan and anybody who has concerns about the map and deal with that, and then.
I'm actually hoping for August.
Okay, I don't think before August, because I'm on vacation also in July, so, okay.
Well, even so, if we could get a copy of it to have and to hold, it would be helpful.
Absolutely. As soon as we get it from Unicode, we can make you either hard copies or soft copies, whatever you
Okay.
need.
Any other questions? Any other comments?
Just a quick one. Going back to the Growth Management Commission, the commercial and industrial average daily water use. Are you planning on at some point in time going back and actually revoking some of these approvals? Because, I mean, you've got like a 2007 and, I mean, I know it takes time but I mean, are we still committed to providing that amount of water to these approvals?
Well, these are not will-serve letters, first of all, so,
Okay.
so there's not that commitment. There's not a revocation process in the growth management section of the municipal code, which is why we haven't pursued that. That said, I'll have to go through and see which other ones haven't been built, but I think we would try, there would probably be, if it came back, it would probably be different enough that we could argue it has to go back to growth management because it's not identical to that thing that was approved in 2007. But yeah, we did look at that about revoking those, and there wasn't a clear path, due process path for that. But that's why the Growth Management Commission started putting sunset clauses on it and, quality control clauses, and really kind of, before that was sort of a rubber stamp, I think.
Well, is that something we could do then, is to work on something that allows us to revoke those?
That's actually a good idea as part of the Title 18 update. As that's the result of the master plan. We can certainly look at growth management and look at having something to revoke those growth management approvals that have never pursued a building permit.
Because we know for a fact that those 3 RV resorts all in the same piece of property, all walked in the door at the same time, nobody get any water.
Understood. No, I think that's a good call.
Okay.
I just had one last thing to say.
Okay.
A big thank you, only because I've only been here for 2 growth management sessions now. I thought this one went very well in terms of the information that was provided to us in advance. Very thorough, helped us. It probably appeared to people who might have been watching that we just, okay, right? We're just taking, the reality is there was so much data, good data, not just in your document, but the letters that they submitted. And the format and doing it after 5 o'clock, I know it meant that they had to be here, but it also allowed the public who works to tune in or come and visit.
I have another question. Is there any way to gauge how many people we had online watching this, or how many people have, considering that we have so many people that have perceived ideas of what's going on, and we continue to invite them? And I've seen the public announcements and so forth, and I'm not seeing any of those guys. So I'm just wondering.
I can double check with our public information officer and see if he identifies how many people are watching on YouTube or on, TV or wherever. I don't know is my answer.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn? Oh, thank you. Public comment. Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Mr. Brooks moved to adjourn. Commissioner DeChristopher seconded.
Thank you.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you, everybody.